4-year-old pet groomer Dana Jasinski is suing pet stylist Annette Shepard for the return of her standard poodle, Cole. Dana says Annette was boarding the dog and refuses to give him back. Annette is countersuing for her expenses.
Your Honor, this is case number 423 on the calendar in the matter of Jasinski versus Shepard. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, ladies. Have seats, please.
Ms. Jasinski, according to your complaint, you brought your dog into the defendant's salon to board for a while. You couldn't take care of him. And when you finally decided you wanted him back, she wouldn't return your dog. You wanted the dog back, or you want to be compensated financially for him. Why did you find it necessary to relinquish custody of your dog in the first place?
Because I was financially having trouble, but rather than just give him away or find him a new home, I wanted to work through the problems I was having.
So you're having financial difficulty?
I had just went through a divorce, and I was trying to get restabilized.
How did you know the defendant?
I knew her only through the fact that she had a salon and that she raised standard poodles.
This is standard poodle. You have a picture of him?
Yes.
I'd like to see him.
The black, the miniature poodle is about 16 years old.
And you kept the other one?
Yes.
Why couldn't you keep the bigger one with you?
Cole was living outdoors at the time, and he had a long coat. It was in the summer, and I was having problems with providing grooming at that time. And that's one reason I went to her, because she is a groomer. And she offered to take care of him, and then I would reimburse her when I picked him up.
First of all, when did you bring the dog to Miss Shepard?
I'm not actually sure the exact date. It was between...
When was it?
The 12th of May.
Had you ever groomed the dog for her before?
No.
Never taken care of the dog for her before?
No, ma'am.
So you were strangers. So you were strangers, and she, according to you, you brought the dog there just to babysit for the dog.
I am a groomer. I could not groom him because I did not have equipment to do so. But it goes beyond just the grooming part. He needed, care that I was not able to give him.
What kind of care?
He needed to be indoors, for one thing. He was an indoor dog.
I don't understand why he was living outdoors.
Because I was living where I could not keep him indoors.
So what you're telling me is that this dog was neglected?
No.
If a dog is living outside and a standard poodle requires grooming, otherwise they get matted,
Right, he was not matted. His condition of his coat was long because I kept him long, and in that picture he has a long coat.
Okay. Tell me your conversation when you brought the dog to Miss Shepard.
We did not conversate that much. I took the dog in. She knew my situation.
No, tell me what you said to her then on the phone. I have to know what your conversation was with her. I have two different versions of the conversation.
Okay. On the phone, it was that I was having trouble with him and that he needed some more care than I was able to give him at that time. I took him into her.
And what did she say to you?
She said that she could take care of him. She told me that I could bring him in. When I left him, we did not talk. I signed a paper saying my name and my phone number, and I left. I went back 2 days later, and we discussed what was going to happen with his care.
What was the discussion 2 days later?
The discussion was that since I was having trouble, she would keep him until I was able to get back on my feet. And
why would she do that for you? She's a perfect stranger to you.
She offered to take him. I would have to pay for his feed, for his vet expenses, and for grooming.
So did you do that?
When I came back, I asked her frequently how much he would be.
No. When you left the dog, did you give her any money?
No.
Did you give her any money the next week?
When I went to go pick him up, I was supposed to pay. I did keep in touch with her, and I did ask her regularly how much he would be. And she said we would have to see at the end.
Okay. There came a time, according to your complaint, that you wanted the dog back. When was that?
That was on June 28th.
Tell me about it.
I got back into town. I had went to Florida, and this was part of getting back on my feet. I had helped with a land sale in Florida. In that land sale, I received a finder's fee. I got back in town and called her on June 28th, and I have phone records to most of our conversations.
When did you leave town?
I left May 21st, I believe.
Between May 21st and June 28th, how many times did you contact Miss Shepard?
About 5 times that I have phone records for.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and I told her I was coming in, asked her once again how much he would be, and she said, he's $1,000 or you could just come sign him over. And I told her I did not want to sign him over.
Okay, Miss Shepard.
Dana first contacted the shop, and my bather answered the phone, and the request was, I know that Annette has standard poodles. She takes very good care of her dogs. I need her to find a home for my dog. I can't take care of him.
She didn't have this conversation with you. She had it with somebody else.
With my witness.
Could you step up, please? Tell me your name.
Stacy Lewis.
You bathe the dogs? Is that what
Yes.
you are? She said you're a bather.
Yes.
I assume you bathe something other than yourself.
Correct.
Okay.
And I also help out in the shop. We sold merchandise.
Do you remember when the conversation took place
Yes,
with
ma'am.
Ms. Jasinski?
Yes, ma'am.
When was it?
It was about 3 days prior to her bringing in the dog. The first conversation with her that I had was over the phone. She called, wanted to speak with Annette. Annette wasn't in at the time, so I asked her, could I help her? And she stated to me, I have a dog that I need Annette to take for me. When we hear stuff like that, we refer them to her cell phone because it's an important call. And that was the end of our conversation. The second time she came into the shop, it was about 2 days later. And she came into the shop, and I asked her, could I help her? She said, I need to speak with Annette. Annette was out doing banking at that time.
When she came and asked for Annette, did she ask for her by name or did
Yes.
she ask for the owner of the shop?
She asked for Annette by
How
name.
did you know her name?
Because the name of her shop is Annette's Pet Parlor.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Now, that time when she came in, she came all the way up into the grooming facility beyond the shop and stuff, and I said, can I help you? Annette's not in. She said, I have a dog that Annette's supposed to be finding a home for. I need to get in touch with Annette. I said, well, she's out running around. I said, either call her on her cell phone or try back in an hour. And that was the end of our conversations.
Okay. It was the next day that she brought the dog in?
Yes, she brought the dog on May the 12th.
Okay. Can I have a seat, Ms. Lewis?
And I was there. The dog was in very bad shape. He was extremely matted, hadn't been groomed in probably 5 to 6 months, which for a standard poodle is not a good thing. We talked. She asked me, when you find him a home, would you please let me know that he has a home, and if you can, let me know where he went. I said, I'd be glad to do that for you. She left the dog. I took him in. We groomed him. It took me 3 hours. Normally it takes an hour. He had cockleburs, fleas, ticks, straw, sticks in his coat. In 30 years of grooming, I've never seen a dog in this kind of shape. He was 20 pounds underweight. He was very, very sick. We did not think the dog would make it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
According to the vet, the dog was grossly underweight.
He was not underweight when I left him.
Of course he was, madam. You mean in 2 days the dog lost 20 pounds?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Dana Jasinski says pet stylist Annette Shepard refuses to return her standard poodle. Annette says Dana is a negligent pet owner.
Okay. According to the vet who saw the dog was grossly underweight because the vet says when the dog had gained sufficient weight and was able to undergo surgery, he was brought for vaccination and neutering. The veterinarian says that the dog had hookworms, whipworms, which if allowed to persist for long periods of time can be life-threatening. The vet said that the dog was so heavily infested that he required 2 treatments, not just 1. Sounds to me as if the dog was not well cared for.
Could I see that or know the date of which she took him in?
The first time was the 14th of May, and then we took him back again on the 28th of May.
Correct. 2 days after you brought the dog into her.
When I stayed in contact with her, when I talked to her, and she never said anything like this, he was not underweight when I left him.
Of course he was, madam. You mean in 2 days the dog lost 20 pounds?
No, on June 25th, I asked her if she had taken him to the vet, and she said she had not.
I don't have to tell her anything what I'm doing with the dog.
As of June 25th,
Don't argue with each other.
As of June 25th, she
Listen.
had told me.
What I'm telling you is the dog had been neglected. And you may have been going through some serious difficulties yourself, but your dog had been neglected. Okay. When did you place this dog?
Probably within 8 weeks of when I got him.
Where did you get the dog from?
In Huntsville, Susan.
Do you have a receipt?
No, I do not.
Well, what I need is a bill for the dog, because what you're saying to me is that you want either the dog or you want the value of the dog.
To go find another standard poodle?
I don't want to know about going finding another standard poodle. I want to know how much you paid for the dog. I need that.
The dog I paid $500 for.
Okay. According to your testimony, if I believed you, you were going to pay Miss Shepard all of the vet bills, feed bills, the cost of caring for the dog? Did you ever board a dog before?
Yes, it's $10 a day and where we're from.
Who are you?
I'm her witness. I'm Julie Matthews. I'm one of her witnesses.
A witness to what?
To the incident with the dog and her calling the dog and keeping in touch with her and the phone calls that she made to the groomer. I'm a witness to that. Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm Julie Matthews.
Do you have a relationship to Miss?
We're
friends, and we work together.
Where do you work?
We worked at Petco during this time.
We worked together in the grooming salon.
Were you working at Petco on May 12th?
No, they did not open until June.
The store opened in June.
Okay. You were not present during any of her conversations when she turned Cole over to Miss Shepard?
Just a witness to that she tried to get a bill from her several times, and I ended up on the phone with her myself one of those times.
What was your conversation with Miss Shepard when Miss Shepard said...
Well, she didn't know she was talking to me. She had been talking to her on the cell phone. We were at work, and she was crying on the phone. She just handed me the phone, and then I'm just listening to somebody hollering through the phone.
What was she saying?
That she can't have her dog, she can't get her bill, and we said we was going to take her to court. She's like, well, just take me to court, and then it just ended in a hang-up. So that's
well, you didn't say anything to me.
Yeah, but I didn't really say nothing hardly at all. Just said, we'll see you in court is basically what I said.
You can have a seat.
Could I bring one more thing up?
Sure.
Actually, there's two more things. This is from a poodle message board, and I was going to let you read some things that Annette had typed. And also...
Oh, she said, this letter is about you, and if she ever contacts you about a dog, I wouldn't sell her a dead rat. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and then this is also...
And?
And this was also something I had come across.
Well, what's wrong with this? She's saying she's saying that you neglected your dog, and she's a breed. Shh, shh. That's what she's saying. She's saying you neglected your dog. She's saying that she would not place any live animal with you. What is this?
That is a case I came across of at the courthouse that they gave me where she was found guilty of cruelty to animals.
That's not related to this case.
It is not related. However, it does tell her character to the fact that she had that horse in her care.
It does not tell the character.
Shh. She did her homework.
Yes, she did.
She did her homework.
The part that she didn't tell is that the person that prosecuted me is the cousin to the DA.
Well, the horse that's here doesn't look like it's in very good condition.
No, it was
I don't
not.
know.
I had contacted her to remove him from my premises, and she did not.
I don't know anything about this case, but certainly, Ms. Jasinski, you did your homework. What you didn't do was to take care of your dog.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Dana Jasinski says Annette Shepard was boarding her standard poodle and refuses to give him back.
Okay, I find it really difficult to believe, being a dog owner, that you can leave a dog with a stranger for 2 months, and this isn't somebody that you know, that you had a relationship with, that you felt comfortable with. This was a stranger that you got out of the Yellow Pages. Stop playing with that, please.
Yes, ma'am.
How much do they charge to groom a standard poodle at Petco?
Depending, if you do the bath, brush out, and trim around the face, it's normally around $30.
That's very, very reasonable. Paid a lot more for my little tiny Shih Tzu.
And I charge more than that.
Okay. Now, according to your testimony, you believe that boarding should be $10 a day. I'm speaking. That's what you just told me. Your dog was there for almost 60 days. That would be $600 just to cover basic care. Now, that's $10 a day. I don't know anybody who'd take care of a big standard poodle for $10 a day. Probably more like $20 a day, which would be $1,200. Then you have a vet bill, which is here, and you have grooming. So when she said to you, your bill is $1,000, why would you even question that if she said that to you? You see, what doesn't make sense from your statement is if somebody said, well, it's $1,000, I would run in with the $1,000 and give her the $1,000 because that's a bargain.
I went to her for help with my dog. it's separate than boarding. If I had taken him in to board, and I do understand that boarding is
What do you
average
mean you went
$2
for
a day.
help? I don't understand what you mean. You went for help? She's a stranger to you. She's in
Right.
business.
She knew. We talked in depth about my situation as well as Cole and about me getting Cole back.
Listen to me. I don't believe you. She's a stranger to you. She's also a dog breeder. And clearly, based upon what I read, she does some rescue of standard poodles. Now, if you're going to her as a breeder groomer, then you expect to pay. And the $1,000 that she said you owed her, $500 a month to board, take care of the dog's vet bills, take care of the parasites, take care of the grooming, that's a bargain. So when you called up and you said, listen, we were in business, I came to you in a business relationship, which is what you're telling me. $1,000, I'll be there in a half hour with $1,000. You said you just got a check. That's why you came back. You weren't having financial problem anymore. If you went to her because you said, I can't take care of my dog anymore, so I'm not coming to you as a business, reluctantly, I'd like you to find a home for my dog, that I can understand. She's a stranger. She's a stranger to you. So either it was a business relationship, and when she said the bill is $1,000, you should have been there in 5 minutes, or she was taking the dog because the dog was a severely neglected dog, and the dog had to be taken care of, physically brought up to snuff, and then placed. Did you place the dog in a good home?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. But for the fact that the plaintiff brought this action, because you have a counterclaim for all of your expenses.
Yes, ma'am.
You wouldn't have brought this counterclaim. Is that right? No, because she brought the dog into you for
yes,
rescue.
ma'am. That's correct.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. I hope that the dog now has a good home.
He
That's
does.
going to take care of him. He's an inside dog. He should remain an inside dog. Is he a dog that you still see for grooming?
Well, no, he actually got to live in a nice home in Ohio, and he stays indoors all the time. And
How did he get to Ohio?
They came and picked him up. This is the dog now, and he is in a great home. And I also made them sign a contract. If they could never keep him, he was to be returned to me to rehome. So they drove a long way to get him.
Just show these to the plaintiff, please. Well, he looks beautiful and he looks healthy.
Yes, he's in a great place.
Certainly based upon what the veterinarian says, a much different dog than the vet saw. Without even...
And the problem with him was he had problems, and I had to quarantine him, and I did lose business for that. But, you know, I didn't care. I just wanted him in a good home.
Looks like he has that.
He does.
Okay, good. Your claim is dismissed, and your counterclaim is withdrawn.
Well, the veterinary bills I would like to have re-gotten, but it's not a big thing.
I didn't think so. Thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Bowling alley worker Michael Gilliott is suing his former friend, 22-year-old mechanic John Bogus, for the cost of tires and spinner rims.
All rise. Yeah, this is case number 503 on the calendar in the matter of Gilliott versus Bogus. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat.
Mr. Gillian, what do you do for a living, sir?
I currently work at a bowling and billiards hall.
How much do they pay you for doing this job?
$6.50 an hour.
Where do you live?
My dad,
How old are you?
20 years old.
Pay rent to your dad?
No.
So you live there rent-free?
Yeah, I had my own apartment for a while. I moved home because I'm actually moving out of state in a couple months, so I moved home to save up money.
How much you bring home every week?
Well, not as much as a couple $100 a week, $300-400 a week.
What?
Couple
You bring home
$100 a week.
$400 a week?
Well,
So a couple
paychecks.
He said a couple of hundred, three,
Yeah,
400.
well,
A couple to
I
me
get
is
paid.
2, right? And then he said 300-400.
Well, I get paid every 2 weeks, and my paychecks range between $300 and $400. That's what I meant, Your Honor.
Oh, so you make between $150 and $200 a week.
Yes.
And you, sir, how old are you?
22.
And what do you do for a living?
Service technician on fire trucks and ambulances.
And how much do you make?
$10 an hour.
Where do you live?
Lincoln with my mom.
Pay rent?
No, I don't.
How much do you bring home every 2 weeks?
About $600 every 2 weeks after my child support.
After child support?
Yep.
What kind of child support?
I got a 14-month-old son.
And how much do they take out of your check for that?
$600 a month for child support and daycare.
I'm asking these questions because This is what this case is about.
Okay.
Mr. Gillian bought a truck from Mr. Bogus and paid him like $4,000 for the truck.
Yeah, roughly.
What's roughly?
It was, I believe, $4,200.
And then this person who makes $150 a week goes out, because the truck is running. It's a nice truck, right?
It is a nice truck.
He goes and puts something, spinners and new wheels on the truck.
Of course.
For another $3,800.
Oh, yeah. Good investment.
Something no one can live without, especially when you're saving up to start a new life. Starting a new life, most people would buy a bed or a couch. Spinners and wheels is almost like sunshine. Can't live without it.
It was...
Then, what?
I'm sorry, it was $3,200 was the
$3,200, excuse me.
Just let you know.
Another $3,200. Then, according to Michael over here, he runs into John, and John says, gee, love the way that car looks with those spinners and wheels. I'm really sorry I sold it to you. I want it back. I'd love to buy it back from you. Just about that time, Michael loses his job and has fallen on some tough financial times.
I wonder why.
This is not what he just told me just now. But he said, fine, I'll sell you back the truck. You give me $4,500 for the truck, and you can pay me the other $3,000 that I spent for the
Spinners
and wheels when you get it. And he sells him back the truck. And according to Michael, John paid him about $200 towards the spinners and wheels, and then has been avoiding him. So far, I'm pretty right?
One thing, I also have another form of income. The car deal, buying and selling them, is one thing I've done since before I even had a driver's license with my dad. He's a body man. So we would buy cars for, $1,000 or less and put a couple $100s into them and sell them to make
So
profit.
you have an auxiliary source of income?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I liked the way the truck looked. I told him it's a nice-looking truck, and I never said anything about wanting to buy it back. I said I wish I could have it back. It looks good.
Oh, you said, I wish I could have it back.
Yeah.
It looks good.
It looks real good.
Oh, okay, good. Go ahead.
And a couple weeks later, he calls me, and he's like, you got the title for my truck? And I was like, why, are you selling it? He's like, you want to buy it back? I was like, yeah, I got $4,000.
Just a second. You mean you hadn't given him the title?
No.
Why not?
It was about 2 weeks.
Why hadn't you given him the title?
He never asked for it, and it's just...
What?
He waited 2 weeks to ask for it.
How do you sell a truck without the title? Can I see the bill of sale, please, for the truck?
Don't have one.
Did you register the truck in your name?
No, but as far as the title goes, I had requested it on multiple occasions.
Just a second.
Okay.
Your business, according to you, was buying and selling vehicles and
Yes.
selling. So what you're telling me is, what you want me to believe is that you have no bill of sale, you never registered the truck in your name.
That's true.
You never insured the truck.
That's true.
You invested $3,200 in a truck that was not titled to you. Is that right?
Yes, that's true.
Is that right?
Yes, that's it.
And do you know what I say to both of you? Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of MacArthur versus Kempton, step forward.
24-year-old nurse Rebecca MacArthur is suing her former best friend, nurse Catherine Kempton, for an unpaid loan to buy furniture. Catherine says Rebecca slept with her husband.
Miss MacArthur, Miss Kempton used to be a very dear friend of yours, and according to your complaint, you made a loan to her by allowing her to use a credit card of yours to buy some furniture. Miss Kempton does not deny that you allowed her to use your credit card, and she does not deny it was a loan. She said she did pay you back some of it. You acknowledge that she paid you back some, although there is a discrepancy as to the amount. So let's take care of that part of the issue first. How much is remaining on her bill, including interest, for the furniture?
$1,408.84.
And how much did she make in payments?
She made $500 in payments.
Do you have proof that you made more than $500 in payments? Let me see.
They're all right here.
Okay. And can I see what you have with regard to the interest?
I have proof of the remaining balance along with the check that I paid and the statements with each individual payment.
Okay. You owe her considerably more than the $600 that you thought you owed her, because since you weren't making payments regularly, they were adding up interest. And that's what happens when you don't make payments regularly. Now, your defense to this matter is a rather interesting one. Your defense to this matter is you don't have to pay the money because there was an indiscretion between your husband and the plaintiff, and therefore you don't owe her any money. Forget it. It's not a defense. It's a reason to give him a hard time. It's a reason for her not to be your friend anymore if this, in fact, happened, but it's not a defense to this lawsuit. We understand each other?
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
when you left the ring on the table, according to you, where had the ring been?
With her.
So you took the ring off her finger?
Yes.
Do you have the ring?
No.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 24-year-old nurse Rebecca MacArthur is suing her former best friend, nurse Catherine Kimpton, for an unpaid loan to buy furniture. Catherine says Rebecca slept with her husband.
Go ahead.
That was never my claim.
Well, I'm reading that in your answer.
No, it wasn't.
It said, Rebecca has put me through so much personal pain. This lawsuit is generated by the fact that she fears that I will not pay her because of what she did to me and to my family. And I owe her $600. I'm not paying a penny more. That's what you said. Somebody's got to pay the interest. Who's supposed to pay the interest?
I had no problem paying any of it.
Okay, good. Then judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,258. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I just don't think much of somebody who can treat a friend and betray him with an affair.
You know, we have talked about this, and I'm just done.
It happened one time. My husband told me the very next day.
I am sorry that I lost a friend, but at the same time, I'm just glad it's done.
She admitted to it and then tells everybody else that it's a lie.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Edgman versus Quinlan, step forward.
22-year-old hairstylist Rebecca Edgman is suing her cousin's girlfriend, 23-year-old gas station clerk Jessica Quinlan, for a loan to buy a ring. Jessica claims she surrendered the ring to Rebecca because she couldn't afford it.
Miss Edgman, I assume this is your cousin, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And according to your complaint, Miss Quinlan is your cousin's girlfriend.
Yes.
And they lived with you for a period of time.
Yes, Your Honor.
While they were living with you, Miss Quinlan wanted to buy your cousin a ring.
That's correct.
Didn't have the money. You agreed to allow her to use your credit card.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then there was some sort of a disagreement. They left, and she did not pay you back for the ring.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Quinlan says that first the ring was a gift. Allowing her to use the credit card was your idea for some reason. But that when they left, she left the ring. When did they move in with you?
July of 2004.
Who else lives in your home?
My girlfriend, Angie.
Tell me about this ring that you wanted to buy.
I was wanting to buy Linda the ring, but I didn't have credit, no money to get it. She offered, because Linda has done so much for her. I refused a couple of times because I don't like to have that. I don't like people to do things for me like that. And so finally we went and picked out the ring.
So finally you agreed?
Yes. We went and got the ring. After a month living there, things was getting hectic, and we were moving out, and she had said that I needed to pay for the ring, so I didn't want no conflict within the family and all that, so I told her that I was leaving the ring on the table. And
when you left the ring on the table, according to you, where had the ring been?
With her.
So you took the ring off her finger?
Yes.
What?
No, I work at a grocery store, and I had wore it a couple times to the store, and it started getting scratches. So I left it at Rebecca's house, not just that day, but days prior, because I didn't want the ring to be scratched up.
Do you have the ring?
No.
No. Good. How much was the ring?
The ring was $476.20.
Is that right, Miss Quinlan?
Yes.
Okay, that's what you owe her, Miss Quinlan.
This is one of the receipts.
That's what you owe her. 400, if you didn't pay her, that's what you owe her.
Here's the original.
We don't have the ring.
Listen to me. That's not her fault. If you took the ring and put it in her hand and say, listen, I can't pay you for this ring, take it back, see what money you can get back for it. She's not going to get $470 for it because they're not going to return it for what she paid for it because your friend says that it was scratched. She can't even return it to something that's brand new. So you have to pay for it. You got it? Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $470. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She needs money to pay for her wedding, and I wasn't going to give her that, so that's why we got brought here today.
My wedding was paid for. I paid for it all by myself, and it was paid for before the wedding. The wedding was over a month ago.
And it won't be settled, and it won't be taken care of because everybody likes to talk.
She's had to struggle tremendously, not just with her cousin, but other family members too because of it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Banukowitz versus Broder, step forward, please.
16-year-old Nicholas Banukowitz and his father, Mark, are suing the boyfriend of Nicholas's mother, truck driver Richard Broder, for an unpaid loan to pay bills.
Mr. Banukowitz, how old are you, sir?
16.
This is your dad?
Yes.
You're living with him now?
Yes.
Tell me your first name.
Nicholas.
Nicholas, this gentleman, Mr. Broder,
Yes.
was your mom's boyfriend.
Yes.
Who is this?
I'm the mom.
Are you back together again?
Yes.
You weren't for a while.
Correct.
Anyway, you went to live for a brief period of time with your mother and her boyfriend.
I lived there off and on
And when you weren't living there, where were you living?
with my father.
According to what I read, it is your claim that you loaned Mr. Broder $550 because things got financially tight in the house. And he asked you if you could lend him some money. You were working, you had a job after school. And you did.
Yes, ma'am.
Then they broke up for a while. You wanted your money back? He says that it was not a loan, it was towards the payment of household expenses because he put a roof over your head. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 16-year-old Nicholas Banukowitz and his father, Mark, are suing the boyfriend of Nicholas's mother, truck driver Richard Broder, for an unpaid loan to pay bills.
All right. How old were you, Nicholas, when you moved with your mom and Mr. Broder during the period of time that you gave him this money?
15.
And where had you been working?
The supermarket.
What did you do there?
I stocked the shelves.
What did you earn an hour?
Around then, like $7.50.
How long did you work there?
I'm still there now.
So you've been working there for a couple of years?
Yes.
You work there after school?
Yes.
How do you do in school?
Good.
Great. Now, when you lived with your mother and Mr. Broder, was it your mother's house or Mr. Broder's house?
It was my mother's, but they were moving, so that's when he asked me for the money.
Was it a rental property?
Yes.
When they moved, did you move with them?
I live there. I go there once in a while, like on the weekend and stuff. I don't live there permanently.
Now, tell me about when Mr. Broder asked you for money. Do you remember when it was?
It was November 30th, 2003. He asked me for $450, and he promised to pay me back.
What did he say?
He goes, do you think you could lend me some money? We were trying to move, we were a little short.
Where were you, in the house?
Yes.
Where in the house?
The dining room.
Where was your mother?
Right next to me.
So he said, could you lend me some money? I'm a little short, we want to move. And what did you say to him?
I said, okay, and then he promised to pay me back.
What did he say? Don't tell me he promised. What did he say?
He said, I'll pay you back by the 6th of December because I'm getting a bonus or something like that from work.
Where did you keep the money?
In my house, in my room.
So you gave him the money in cash?
Yes.
When did you give him the other 100?
In September of 2004.
Why, if he hadn't paid you back the money?
Because I trusted him. He was my mother's boyfriend, and I figured he would pay me back.
Between November 2003 and September 2004, almost a year passed. Did you ask him for the money?
Every month, I sent him a letter saying how much he owed me.
You have a copy of the letters?
Yep. And I also sent him a certified letter.
Mr. Broder, whether you say that this was a gift or a loan, did you ever respond to any of these letters?
No.
Why not?
I just put them aside, and because at the time I wasn't working or anything, and he really never persisted.
Okay. Now, tell me your version of this $550.
At the time, we were in financial difficulties. We both asked him for the money. And at the time, I didn't have a job. So
What about her?
She was working.
So?
So we were just paying the bills. And at the time, we ended up breaking up. And the reason why on this loan after a year is when we broke up, and that's when his father and him got involved and wanted to take me to court for the money back, for the loan.
Well, you keep saying loan, which is a nice thing. That makes my job much easier, Mr. Broder.
Well, he was living with us for a while and everything.
You used the word loan twice.
That's what he put on the paper as a
No,
loan.
that's what you just said. I understand what he said. You used the word loan twice. Do I make you that nervous, Mr. Broder?
No, you don't make me nervous.
At all?
No.
You mean you just step in your own mouth on your own, whether I'm make you nervous or not? What you just said to me was I wasn't working. The mother and I asked for the loan together. The reason after a year I didn't pay back the loan was he wasn't pushing it. I mean, what's your defense to this action, Mr. Broder? I'd be really interested.
Your Honor, at the time, he was working when I lent him the $450.
Who cares? I asked him. I want to know his defense. I'm listening. And I have other things to do today. Do we have a defense, Mr.
No,
Broder?
we don't have a defense. I'm
Judgment
sorry.
for the plaintiff in the amount of $550. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All these are excused. You may step out.
Plaintiff Richard Buck Sr. is suing horticulturist Gordon Westfall for the cost of medical marijuana plants. Richard says Gordon didn't deliver the marijuana as promised.
That's case number 64 on the calendar in the matter of Buck versus Westfall. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, ma'am. Have a seat.
Mr. Buck, in what state do you reside, sir?
Oregon.
I assume it is legal in Oregon, in the state where you reside, for you to enter into a contract in order to provide you with medicinal marijuana.
Yes, ma'am.
Which you say you need because you are ill and you take it for medical reasons.
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that you entered into a contract with Mr. Westfall for him to provide you with marijuana, which was prescribed by your doctor for you, and that he breached that contract, did not provide you with the marijuana. You had given him a certain amount of money. Not only do you want that money back, but you want other non-specific damages because you say that because of his breach, you were not provided with the marijuana, you suffered physically as a result of that, and you want him to pay damages.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, what's the nature of your illness, sir?
I'm paraplegic. I also have stress-related seizures, and I have extreme muscle spasms because of the paralysis.
And for how long have you been under doctor's care, part of which is the use of marijuana?
For a little over a year.
And how often are you supposed to use marijuana?
5 to 6 times a day.
Where did you meet Mr. Westfall?
I met him at a medical cannabis awards that was going on in Portland, Oregon.
When?
In the 22nd of November of last year.
And when did you enter into the agreement with him?
We signed the transfer papers on the 25th, and he started to grow in the garden for me on the 28th.
Can I see the papers that you signed? What is a transfer agreement?
Giving him the legal right to grow the medicine for me.
It's called a change request form, and what this is a form that illustrates or it tells people where the cannabis is going to be grown. It's going to be telling who the cannabis is growing it, and he signed this on the 7th of January. Legally,
just a minute,
I cannot grow any medicine until that's signed and given to DHS.
When did you terminate your relationship with him?
March 29th.
So approximately little less than 3 months.
Correct.
According to you, since he signed this agreement. Right? Now, he says he signed it in the end of November.
That's his signature.
Who filled this out? Here?
We filled in 2 of those request forms. The first one that we filled out, Your Honor, he was living at his mother's address, which is not the same address that was there. In January, on the 9th, we moved the garden from his mother's house into his new home that he just moved to.
Okay, the reason I'm asking you that question, Mr. Westfall, the reason I'm asking you that question, Mr. Westfall, is I read your answer very carefully, and your answer said that your agreement was that you would grow this marijuana for him between 4 and 6 months from the day you executed the agreement. And if I believed what you tell me, that this was the date that he signed the agreement, and you couldn't start growing until he signed the agreement, that was less than 3 months.
Correct.
So he is correct that you signed your original agreement sometime in November.
That's right, because
Look at me. Look at me.
We moved. I moved, and we had to fill out a new caregiver form for the new address. So he is correct.
There was another agreement other than
correct.
this one.
Yes, he is correct.
Okay. So you started to give him money. How much money did you give him after you signed the original agreement?
$425 over a period of 4 months.
Is that correct, Mr. Westfall?
That's perjury, and that's a flagrant lie.
You just asked me yes or no.
That's a
not
lie.
correct. Show me a canceled check, sir.
He asked for cash. He didn't want anything in paper. These are the dates and the amounts I wrote in a journal as soon as he left my house. Every payment was made at my house. My wife was
How much did he give you, Mr. Westfall?
He gave me $50 a month plus $20 on top of that twice, and he said he gave me, my mother, $50 for her electricity.
Look at me. Look at me.
He gave her $50. He said he gave her $50 on the 4th of January. He paid the 70 plus the 70, and then another 50. $170 is what he paid.
That would be $190.
But I don't know if that other 50 is
that would
there.
That would be $190 so
Okay.
far. He says 420. Okay, and then what happened, Mr. Buck?
Come the 27th, I was supposed to have my medicine delivered to me on the 28th of March. On the 27th...
Just a second. Who said so?
The gardener, Gordon. He told me that my crop would be in. The first time it was February, then it was the 18th of March, then it went from the 18th to the 28th.
Of March?
Of March.
Yes.
Then come the 27th of March, I called his house to ask him what time he would be coming over on the 28th. He said that he needed another 2 weeks, which is over and over again the same excuse.
Okay.
So I asked him if I could please come out and see the garden, because after 5 months I had not been allowed to see it.
Wasn't 5 months.
4 months.
Right. Don't.
And so he refused to let me. And then that night, about 5.5 hours later, he brought this one plant over to me, and it was nothing like it was supposed to have been. He also brought me this paper to sign that was handwritten by him, suggesting that I asked him to bring the plants to me when I never did. I asked to see the garden. And also with that is a picture of the plant that he did bring me, and there's 2 pictures of a plant that should have been what it looked like at that stage.
Okay, so tell me what happened, Mr. Westfall.
What happens, like I said, we met.
Don't just tell me what happened with this plant.
What happened was...
You started to grow his marijuana sometime in late November, because that's when you signed the original agreement. Okay, now we're in March. We're at the end of March.
So we moved the plants into the new home, went through a shock. My daughter got sick because of the mold that was going through the air, so I had to move those plants into another space on the property.
Now, when did you communicate the fact that because of your own family problems, you had to move the marijuana plant?
Well, it wasn't because I had to move the plants.
Listen to me. When did you communicate?
The 28th. The
28th of what?
The 29th.
Of what month?
March 29th.
Well, when did you actually move the plants, Mr. Westfall?
The plants were already moved 2 months before that.
Just a minute. Did you tell him that you moved the plants that were supposed to be his went into shock?
That was, yes, but that was because of a light problem that we had, unforeseen light problem.
I don't care what your problems are, sir. Do you understand?
Yes.
I'm asking you when you communicated that fact to Mr. Buck. In March?
March.
Or in March. Well, that's wrong, Mr. Westfall.
No, I was in
That's wrong, Mr. Westfall.
Richard Buck Sr. says horticulturist Gordon Westfall didn't deliver his medical marijuana plants as promised.
If, because of your own family problems, your daughter's problems, mold problems, whatever problems, you could not complete your contract in a timely fashion, it was your responsibility as a caregiver to advise Mr. Buck that he couldn't have his contracted for medicine because of your problems. You chose not to do that. That's not fair, sir.
But that isn't right. The reason why we had the delay was on the 29th. I called him and I said we had a lighting problem that put the plants back 4 to 6 weeks.
You had problems with it before. That's what you just told me. Don't try to dance around that.
Not for the flowering plants.
Not for the flowering plants. What are you growing, gardenias, sir?
There's three different stages of growth. There's the propagation stage where you clone and you grow for 21 days or so, and that will get your roots. After that, you grow for 3 months in the vegetative state, which allows it to get tall enough to be put into the flowering state, in which I have a video of the...
I'm not interested.
...of the plant.
You're fast-talking me, sir.
And when
You're fast-talking me.
You cannot have any light on those flowers for the 70 days that you flower them. And there was a lighting problem, and that's what was the problem.
Who caused the lighting problem?
There just was a the timer.
What do you mean?
The timer didn't go off.
Whose fault is that?
It's a timer, the manufacturer, obviously.
No, sir, that's your responsibility. You're supposed to be watching the store.
Every day I go in there.
Well, then it's your responsibility. Mr. Westfall, you do not deny that you had a verbal contract to provide these plants for him.
Correct.
I think that you're doing a lot of fast talking, sir. I don't know what you did with the plants. I don't know if you sold the marijuana to somebody who was paying you more money. I have the foggiest idea what you did. But you breached a verbal agreement to provide him with something that the state of Oregon says that he is permitted to have in order to ameliorate a physical condition. He contracted that you should provide for him, and I find that there is absolutely no excuse for you not providing for it in a timely fashion. Now, how long did it take you, sir, to get the medicinal marijuana that you need?
I haven't gotten any from Gordon at all.
Not from him.
I've had to ask for donations, and there's not always available, so I've had to do it.
You had to ask for donations, so you want your money back.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's all that you're going to get, sir, and I find that you gave him $425, although he says no, but you're certainly not going to get any other damages because you've been provided with it, even though you had to ask for it as a favor. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $425. That's all.
Thank you.
Why is our excuse to make stuff out?
$150, he's suing me for $400. He's a liar.
He told me he was doing this for the good karma in his soul, but then turned around to try to charge me over and over and over again for money and then lied about it himself.
He required and made me give him his plants after he yelled and called my pregnant wife names on the phone.
100% of the time it happens just before the medicine is to be delivered, and they're looking at all this money, and that's what the greed is usually what takes people.
I ended up cutting off my relationship with him. I gave him his plants, and that was it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Halsell versus Thompson. Step forward, please.
19-year-old marketing researcher Tracy Halsell is suing his former friend, 24-year-old hairstylist Antonio Thompson, for damages to his apartment. Antonio says Tracy slept with his girlfriend.
Mr. Halsell, the defendant used to be a friend of yours, and he was also your roommate. According to you, he moved in with you into your home. Is that right?
Correct.
And there was some sort of a falling out, and you claim that your house was burglarized and vandalized, some property destroyed, and you believe that the defendant is responsible for that. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
He says he had nothing to do with this burglary. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
When did he move in with you?
At the beginning of August, around the 13th.
And when did he move out?
Around October, the middle of October.
And when was your house vandalized?
Around the time that he moved out, because I never...
Well, give me the date, sir.
I don't know the exact date.
Well, you have to have the exact date, sir.
Because he came back to get his stuff. So the day that I put him out was like the 8th, because that was on the police report. But the day that he came back to get all of his stuff was in between that day and the 15th.
Where's the police report?
The police report is in my luggage that I lost at the airport, along with some pictures.
What kind of damage was done to your apartment?
My TV, it seemed like that he just took a stick or a bat.
Don't tell me what he did. I asked you what kind of damage was done to the apartment.
My vases were destroyed that were given to me by my mother. Customized television was destroyed. Also a dining room table and a few holes in the wall that were fixed because I had insurance on the apartment.
Now, why do you think Mr. Thompson, when he moved out, would do such a thing?
The day that he was initially not planning on returning, I slept with his girlfriend, so...
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
How much damage did you suffer from Mr. Halsell?
Over $1,500.
See what happens when you allow your body to be ruled by something other than your brain, sir?
Yes.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tracy Halsell claims former friend Antonio Thompson trashed his apartment. Antonio says Tracy slept with his girlfriend.
He found you with his girlfriend? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
She's still your girlfriend?
Mm-mm.
What's her name?
Amy.
Who was this?
This is the neighbor. This is my neighbor. He saw Tony come in and out the house. And when Tony left the house, he went into the house to see the damage that was done to my property by Tony. So he called me on my cell phone, and then that's when I returned back to the home.
So when you made the police report, you told the police that you had a witness and that it was Mr. Thompson who had done the damage to the apartment?
Yes.
Step up here. Tell me your name.
Anthony Coleman.
Did you speak to the police?
Yes, I did.
When?
Like right after the incident when Mr. Hossell had returned to the apartment.
And did the police officer write down what you were saying?
Yes.
And you told him that you had seen Mr. Thompson?
Yes, coming in. He went in the house, and that's when I first saw him. And like when he left, that's when I went to the apartment and checked it out, and that's when all the property was damaged.
Did the police speak to you, Mr. Thompson?
No, ma'am.
That's odd.
He's lying.
That's very odd that the police didn't speak to you.
Right.
Once he gave me the description of what he had on and everything, because the police officer asked for a description of him, he was called later on that day. The police contacted me immediately and asked me what he looked like, if I can identify him. I told the police officer I could identify him. I went to District 1 Police Station, and it was him.
Yes?
I was never arrested.
Were you taken into custody?
No.
So what you're telling me, Mr. Thompson, is that Mr. Hossell
Yes, ma'am.
never spoke to the police and gave them your description, and you were never taken into custody. You were never taken down to the precinct and at least spoken to by a police officer. That never happened. Is that what you're telling me?
They never contacted me.
They never contacted you at all with regard to this. That's what you're telling me. And if the plaintiff can produce at some point the documents from the police department indicating that you were in fact taken into custody, then that would mean you were lying. Is that right?
Correct.
And you understand that if you lie about one thing, I can conclude that you lie about everything. You understand that?
Correct.
Oh, then this is going to be an easy case for me. And it's your statement, Mr. Thompson, that you had absolutely nothing to do with the destruction that took place in his apartment.
No, not at all.
Now, when you went to retrieve your property, sir, I assume that he said to you, get your stuff out?
No, that's not how it went.
Well, how did it happen?
When I came home, him and my girlfriend were laying in the bed, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know if he seen me, but I know she seen me because I walked out and then she tried to come out to reconcile and explain herself, whatever, and I just left it alone. I left my key to the apartment on the speaker, which was right next to the door. Then I didn't talk to him. Maybe like 2 or 3 days later, he called me to ask me what was going on and why hadn't I been home, whatever. Why did I leave my key there? And then I explained it to him. And
he called to ask you why you didn't come over. The girl didn't come back and say.
I don't know. I don't know what she did. She got in her car when I left.
You mean she jumped up out of bed naked and ran out into the street and jumped into her car?
When I left out the room, she jumped out of the bed with him and she grabbed their clothes right there and was trying to explain herself to me or whatever.
And you didn't speak to her at all when she got into her car?
I spoke to her for a second outside.
You know, and you said what?
I asked her what was going on. She was just, you know, trying to tell me that it's just something that happened is what she tried to say. Well,
okay.
I just left it alone because she wasn't that important.
Okay, now what happened when you went back to your property? Was any property of his in the house destroyed?
No, when I went back the 3 days later, whatever, he had called me and I told him that I was going to come and get the rest of my things at his house, whatever. So when I went over there, he was there because I gave him my key and he let me in. And I got all of my things out of there and I left.
And you never went back?
Me and him.
So this gentleman is mistaken when he says that you went back there afterwards. He's mistaken.
Right.
And you did speak to the police?
Yes, I did.
And gave them your name?
Yes.
And they wrote down what you said?
Yes.
How much damage did you suffer from Mr. Hossell?
Over $1,500 in damaging.
Okay, see what happens when you allow your body to be ruled by something other than your brain, sir?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is what we're going to do, Mr. Hossell. I am provisionally granting you a judgment in the amount of $1,500 on condition that the court receive within 5 days photographs of the damage as well as the police report indicating prompt outcry on the specific date that you indicated, and the fact that Mr. Thompson was in fact taken into the police station and questioned with regard to this incident. Is that fair, Mr. Thompson?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. That's the judgment of the court. Get me the documents. Thank you, Mr. Halsell. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. Step out, please.
Rollerblader Norm Van says while skating on the beach, he bumped into Henderson Webb's baby stroller. He's suing because Mr. Webb assaulted him, causing severe dental injuries.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 312 on the calendar in the matter of Van versus Webb. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am. Sir.
Mr. Van?
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint alleges that the defendant assaulted you by punching you in the mouth?
Correct.
Something that he acknowledges he did.
Yes, ma'am.
So why don't you tell me how this came about?
Okay. On 4th of July, my brother, his friend, Mr. Rohr, and I were skating northbound on a bicycle path heading towards Manhattan Beach Pier. When we reached the
rollerblading.
Yes, rollerblading. And as we reached the 2600 section of the Strand, the Hermosa Beach Police Department were breaking up a party, and so it became very congested, and they rerouted the direction of the people that were on the path heading north to head back south again. So at that time, we complied with the police officers, and we started to head south.
So they were making him make a U-turn?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so it came to a standstill. And so a person behind me had a bicycle, and they accidentally tripped me, and I accidentally fell on top of the Webb's baby stroller. As soon as I fell on top of the...
Okay, so you were walking with your wife.
Correct.
And you had your baby in the stroller.
We had baby in a baby jogger.
What's a baby jogger?
It's like a stroller, a little bit different, designed for really running with the child.
One of those long, pointy things that
Exactly.
I've seen? Okay. So it's got 3 wheels?
Exactly.
Gotcha. Go.
As soon as I fell on top of the baby stroller accidentally, Mr. Webb immediately pulled me off the stroller, and before I had an opportunity to apologize to him, he became belligerent and started yelling and screaming at me and using profanity. And so since he refused to listen to me, I raised my tone of voice to the level of his and said, "What the hell are you talking about? It was an accident," because he even had the audacity to accuse me of deliberately endangering his child. And the whole time that he
Your
was...
Honor.
Could get to you.
During this whole time, he was more interested in...
Don't tell me what he was interested in. Just tell me what he said to you and what you said to him.
Well, I can't recall everything that he said to me. Just that he was screaming and yelling, and he was using profanity at me, and he deliberately accused me of endangering his child by falling on top of the baby stroller.
Okay.
So after we exchanged words, I then attempted to proceed to leave, and at that point in time, Mrs. Webb then confronted me, and she started to do the same thing to her husband.
Just tell me what she said.
Oh, I can't recall the exact words, Your Honor, so I don't want to guess at it. But she, too, was, yelling, screaming, using profanity against me. And at that point in time, I became upset, and I told her that she was an unreasonable for not allowing me an opportunity to apologize or to look at the situation, that it was accidental, and I had no intentions of hurting their child. So
you didn't say all that. You just called her an unreasonable beep.
Exactly.
Okay.
So at that time, I attempted to leave again, and after I left, Mr. Webb then pursued me and cut me off from leaving, and he attempted to pick a fight with me. He was yelling at me, saying that I cannot call his wife a So I wouldn't allow myself to get in an altercation with him because there was no reason. It wasn't for self-defense. In addition to that, there were several police officers behind us. So he then placed his right hand on my chest, on my left side of the chest, attempting to further provoke me to a fight. And I still refused to engage in a fight. So
Your Honor, that's...
So I then warned Mr. Webb several times to remove his hand from my chest. And when he didn't do it immediately, so that's why I had to do it several times. When he finally removed his hand from his chest, as soon as he put his hand down, he then attacked me and punched me in the mouth. Immediately, his hand came down. And that's when I fell backwards, hitting my head on the ground. And when I tried to get back to my feet again, I got onto my knees. Then Mr. Webb then jumped on top of my back. And when the deranged man was yelling, "You can't call my wife," and he kept on pushing my head towards the ground while he was on top of me. Afterwards, my brother intervened, and then a police officer came by, and when I realized that I was injured from the bleeding...
Where were you bleeding from?
From my lip. My lip became lacerated from the punch, and I then charged Mr. Webb with citizen's arrest and told a police officer who was standing close by of my charge.
Okay. You had some medical bills?
Yes, ma'am.
What were the medical bills?
The medical bills were for the oral surgery, for my tooth to be put a crown put on it, and the actual crown price.
How much?
That came out to, excuse me, and also the emergency room bills as well. And that came out to approximately $901. And in addition to that, my one tooth was shattered, another tooth is cracked, and that tooth has not died yet. So the dentist wants to wait until the tooth does die, and so I have an estimate of that, which is $1,275.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Teach children from a very early age to use their words. Say that to toddlers. Use your words, don't use your fists. And you didn't. You didn't because you got hot.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Norm Van says after bumping into Henderson Webb's baby stroller while rollerblading, Mr. Webb assaulted him, causing dental injuries. Mr. Webb claims he hit Norm in self-defense.
All right, Mr. Webb, now let's hear your version of what happened, sir.
Okay. I think that was a very creative version that you just heard.
Mr. Webb, let me hear your version of what happened,
my wife
sir.
and I left 4th of July midday to walk down the Strand with our daughter Haley in the baby jogger. When we approached the 26th Street intersection, there was a huge crowd that we were just kind of instantly enveloped in. Virtually nobody was moving, maybe at just a very small shuffle. People were going every which direction. I was going northbound on the Strand with the stroller at a little bit of an angle there. When, kind of out of my peripheral vision, I saw some movement, and before anything else, I felt a strong hit against me and down on the jogger. And that was Norm Van. I looked down, he was full body, full weight, impacted upon the jogger. I started trying to help him up, and I said something to the nature of, get up, get off, watch where you're going. He was immediately very indignant with me as far as profanities. I learned some that day. He got off on me and said a lot of things in my face about I'm a effing this, don't touch me, it's not my fault, get your hands off of me, etc. But it was one of those things. I was terrified, obviously. My wife was more petrified than I was. At that point, I looked under the baby jogger, has a canopy on it. Haley was crying and bawling. Wasn't really the place to get her out and find out how she was. Stepped back behind the jogger.
But she was fine.
She didn't have any visible damage.
She was fine.
Correct. Stepped back behind the jogger to resume our snail's pace, so to speak. My wife's still behind me when the next thing I heard was him going off on twice the tirade with my wife. And, at a distance of like that from her face. He called her B-I-T-C-H, but that was the nicest word he called her. We all felt threatened, I think. We had no place to go. We were in a very small space. I kind of put my hand between them. I never once touched Norm Van until I actually hit him. I kind of stepped in front of my wife and in front of Norm Van, so that they were behind me. And he continued to be very threatening, very belligerent, indignant, coming at me this way. I thought for sure he was going to attack me. I've got my wife and child behind me, and I did hit him in the mouth. He never hit the ground, number one. He kind of squatted or kneeled. I got behind him and put my arms around him and locked my hands to contain him. I never tried to hit his head on the cement. I did I hit him once, and that's all that happened. Okay? Held him, contained him. He started screaming, "I'm going to sue you, citizen's arrest." I took a few steps back, and then he started coming at me again. And I said to him 3 or 4 times, "Stay away, stay back." I couldn't understand why he was stepping towards me again. He was pointing his finger saying, "I want you to get arrested, you're in trouble," and I said, "Stay away," because I didn't know why he was coming at me again. I thought he could attack me.
What do you mean you didn't know why, sir? You would hit him in the mouth.
Well, I figured he was going to attack me.
What you figured.
Right, I felt threatened by him.
You hit him in the mouth.
Yes, I did.
Mr. Webb, you know, I've walked many a stroller, and I've had footballs come into the stroller, and people, it's other times, you know, throwing a can out of a car that almost misses the stroller by that much. You know, has that ever happened to you, Bert?
Sure, Judge. 4 kids.
Yeah? So you know what you want to do to the person who threw their soda can out of a window that almost hits your baby? You want to kill him. That's the immediate reaction.
I agree, but I think that's a little different circumstances than we faced.
Well, I'm not so sure, Mr. Webb. What I'm talking about is the maternal or paternal instinct when something, anything, threatens your child. The adrenaline starts to pump. And you don't want to hear anything about accident, because those kind of accidents aren't supposed to happen. I mean, when you say to me, I tried to help him off the carriage.
Absolutely.
Well, you weren't helping him. You were getting him off there as fast as you could so you could check on your baby. You just wanted to get him off. If you could have used a stick of TNT, it wouldn't have made any difference whether he was okay or not. You wanted to get a look and see what whether your baby was hurt. Mr. Webb, that's totally understandable, sir.
Well, I was understanding enough to realize once he was up that could be over. That's why I stepped behind the baby jogger again to proceed at whatever pace I could to get away from Mr. Van.
But he didn't hit you, you hit him.
Correct. I hit him because I had no place to go, and he was posing an immediate threat to my wife and my child.
No, I don't think so, sir. He was using his words. You lost your temper. You got angry because he said something to your wife, and there's no question in my mind that if I called your wife up here, she would say that she didn't say anything to him. Is that right? Did you say anything to him?
Oh, yeah, I asked him to, you know, just move away and get away from the stroller, because after the confrontation had happened, between my husband and Mr. Van, he didn't just go on his way. He was, I mean, this far away from both of our faces, just telling us that, you know, it's not his fault, and, you know, F this and F that. And
well, let me ask you a question. Did either of you say to him, I know it was an accident, just as that everything's okay now?
I said, move on. Let's forget about this. It's over. And that's why I tried to go northbound. He was engaging my wife at that time.
Had your wife said anything to him before he was engaging you? Did you say to him, no? I don't necessarily believe that, Miss Webb. I mean, I don't say that because it's not common sense. You're a mother, your baby's in the stroller, I can imagine you broke out in an immediate sweat when you saw this body, this huge body over your baby. And you're trying to tell me, trying to stand there and tell me that you were behaving in a calm...
No, we're not. We were both petrified, as our statements will both say.
Mr. Webb, unfortunately, we don't have candid cameras all around the place so that you can view what your reaction was when he fell on your baby.
Right.
Because what you're suggesting to me is your actions were wholly appropriate and consistent with a very moderate tone and a very moderate reaction to an accident. And I guarantee you, sir, it belies common sense to suggest that you were that kind of calm and your wife was that kind of calm. Okay. So you hit him. You got to pay for his damage. No question about that.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
That's pathetic that you would even lie right here.
No, it's pathetic that you would even lie about lying.
I think it's pathetic that you didn't protect your brother.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Rollerblader Norm Van says Henderson Webb assaulted him after bumping into his baby stroller. Mr. Webb says he hit him in self-defense.
Now, I want you to look at these things, sir.
Your Honor, can I make one last quick statement?
Sure.
The fact that the police officers did not arrest me or do anything but take a report, combined with the fact that the first communication I got from Mr. Norm Van was via a lawyer named Daniel Lieb, led me to believe that there wasn't a lot of belief from the standpoint of the police officers that this was something they wanted to pursue, and that it was something that Norm Van merely wanted to get money out of from a precarious situation. And that's why I received a letter asking if I had a certain type of insurance to find out how much coverage or what kind of a plaintiff's win they could get out of this.
Well, Mr. Webb, let me address your first question first, sir. The fact that the police took the information with regard to this case and decided that they weren't going to, at that moment, separate you from your wife and your baby, placing you in handcuffs and taking you off to the pokey, showed good judgment on the part of the police. I mean, they clearly understood that there had been an accident that could have been dangerous, that you overreacted to that, but that didn't rise to the level of somebody who was a dangerous person walking around the street. Certainly, unless somebody else fell on your baby carriage, this wasn't going to happen again. So the police exercised good judgment. They do not necessarily have to arrest everyone. To address your second point, if you got a letter from a lawyer that says, what kind of coverage do you have, because he wants to be reimbursed for whatever his out-of-pocket medical expenses were as a result of you punching him in the mouth, I think that that's wholly appropriate.
Why wouldn't you go to small claims court right off the bat instead of trying to find out how much money he could possibly take advantage of?
Why would he want to do that? People aren't supposed to abuse the court system if they can resolve things without going to court. If they can resolve things without going to court, why would you want to spend a day in court, have to go down there, maybe spend 2 days? Why would you want to do that? That's wholly appropriate, sir. People encourage that. That's why we have mediation services that are blossoming throughout this country to relieve an overburdened court system with cases that really shouldn't be in court. People accepting responsibility for things that they do and saying, all right, I'll pay what I can. I don't find anything inappropriate about that. Now, Mr. Van,
yes, ma'am.
I want you to look at these bills that you've just presented to me, and I want you to tell me exactly what your out-of-pocket expenses were, sir, that were not covered by insurance. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am. That's $901.35.
Okay, because the rest was covered by your insurance.
Correct.
Okay.
In addition to that is the estimate to do the additional work from my other tooth, which is injured but hasn't died yet, which is $1,275.
And that was a result of this incident?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Mr. Van, see, so far I've given it to these people because I think that Mr. Webb was wrong to punch you in the face. And I believe that what happened with the baby was an accident. Right? You also seem like, you know, the kind of guy who should understand that they were really upset. Do you have children?
No, ma'am.
Well, if you have children, you'll come to understand that something happens to a baby of yours, all of those protective juices start to flow. So the fact that Mrs. Webb, and I do believe she opened up her mouth to you, it was probably not the right thing to do to respond to it the way you did, verbally. You could have just kept walking away from her and just ignored her, because she was hot, because her baby was, for that moment, at risk. Do you understand?
Agreed.
You got to use your noodle.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Mr. Webb, you behaved unreasonably because you hit him. You can walk around that every which way, but you behaved wrongly because we teach children from a very early age to use their words. You say that to toddlers. Use your words. Don't use your fists. Don't be physical. Use your words. And you didn't. You didn't because you got hot. And I understand why you got hot, but you got to pay for it. All right? Your total expenses come to about $2,200.
That's correct.
A little bit less, but it's about $2,200. And you're suing the defendant for $3,000.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you're entitled to that. Judgment is for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's
Thank you, ma'am.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge...
Is on Sullivan versus Smith. Step forward, please.
19-year-old waitress Misty Sullivan is suing her ex-boyfriend Ron Smith for assaulting her during an argument.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. Your Honor, this is case number 333 on the calendar in the matter of Sullivan versus Smith. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat, sir.
Ms. Sullivan, your complaint alleges that the defendant assaulted you.
Yes.
Over a year ago.
Right.
And you're suing him for the hospital bills.
Right.
So I want you to tell me where he assaulted you, how he assaulted you, and why you waited a year to bring this lawsuit.
Ron and I had known each other about 5 months, or we were together for about 5 months. After 3 months, we moved in together. And probably about 2 months after that, Ron and I had an argument in our apartment, and he asked me to leave, and I told him to go to his friend Jesse's house and that I would be gone by the time he got back. It turned in just to an argument, and he picked me up and he threw me out the door into the railing. I walked down the stairs and to the Chevron station where I called the police and my dad. The police came and arrested Ron. Ron and I didn't speak for 2 weeks. After that, we got back together, and Ron agreed to help me pay the hospital bill.
Okay, so you got back together again. And how long were you back together again?
Off and on, probably 7 months.
When you say off and on for 7 months, you mean you lived together?
No.
You didn't stay at his house?
No. After that, my cousin and my grandmother, after I left the hospital, had to go to my apartment and move me out because my knee was sprained, and I had 8 stitches in my face and a slight head concussion. And I moved into my Aunt Anna's house at that time.
So you never again stayed at his house?
No.
But you dated?
Yes.
And then what happened?
It just didn't work out. He agreed to pay half of the hospital bill or help me out with the bills. And when we broke up, I had called him and asked him if he was still going to help me, and he told me, good luck. I'm moving in November to go to the wrestling camp. Okay. So that's when I decided to take him to court.
You made an agreement with him, according to you, that you consented to for him to pay for half of the medical bills.
Right, and he had agreed to it.
Okay. And how much were the medical bills?
It's $1,177 now in a collection.
$1,177.
Right.
That's the whole bill.
Yeah, in collection. The whole bill was $882.
Well, it was $882, and then they built up interest on it.
Right, which is on my name in collection.
Why didn't you pay any part of the bill?
Because I just hadn't done it, and then when I
I know you hadn't done it, but my question is, why hadn't you done it?
I had just figured that Ron put me in the hospital, then he should have to pay for it. Why should I have to go through that and pay for it, too?
Well, I'm just asking. I understand that. But what I'm questioning you about is, if you agreed with him that he would pay half the bill, why didn't you, since you were going to pay the other half, pay the other half instead of stiffing the hospital completely?
I just didn't do it.
Well, that's not very responsible.
It's not.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a waitress.
Now, you're suing him for a lot more than half of $1,177.
Right.
Why?
I'm suing him $1,200 for the 6 weeks of loss of work.
Why?
Because I missed work because of him.
But you were seeing each other after this incident. I'll get to you in a second.
Yeah, we were.
And even at the time when you separated 7 months later, according to you, you still said to him, what about the half of this hospital bill that you said you were going to pay?
And he didn't want to do it.
So I still don't understand why now you're tacking on a whole lot of other things.
I had changed my mind. I had decided, why should I have to pay for half of it when it wasn't even my fault? He put me in the hospital. He should pay for the whole thing.
But you, according to you, had an oral contract with him to pay for half of the bill.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Now, Mr. Smith, you want to tell
me? And what it was when we were living together, she was purchasing cocaine. And I have 2 kids. I pay my child support. I only get to see one of them. And I didn't want anything to jeopardize my son being able to come and visit me in my home. And something like that would. I asked her to leave. She refused to leave. I didn't pick her up and throw her out the door. She got hit with the door. She stuck her foot in the door. And then I put my hand on her to get her out the door and close the door behind her. I did not physically pick her up and throw her out the door. I went through my anger management classes, and
you pled guilty to the assault.
I pled no contest.
That's the same as guilty?
Yes. I went through my anger management classes, and like she says, you know, I did agree to pay half of the hospital bill. I did. It was all fine and good until just a little while ago. What it is she calls me up, and when she does call me, she's drunk. And all she wants to do is make up. She's pledging undying love and affection. You know, she wants to be with. She comes to my work drunk. She calls me up drunk, telling me that she loves me. She just wants to be with me. She's never loved anybody like me before, and blah, blah, blah whatsoever. And when I told her, no, I'm sorry, I'm moving, I'm going to Atlanta, she wanted to come to Atlanta with me. After the incident happened, she quit her job so she could move to Minnesota because she was going to be with her mother. It had nothing to do with me at all. That's why she missed that work. She quit her job.
Okay.
I did not make contact with her after the incident. She made contact with me.
Tell me about this argument. The reason that you say that you pushed her out of the house was because of cocaine.
Yes.
Was she, according to you, selling cocaine?
She was buying it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Since when do I do drugs?
You don't smoke pot?
No, I don't.
You don't
Do you?
get drunk?
Oh,
You called the studio drunk off you.
And later today,
He broke the engagement.
By having this affair?
No, he needed time alone. He needed to find himself.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Misty Sullivan says her ex-boyfriend Ron Smith assaulted her during an argument and wants him to pay for her medical bills. Ron doesn't deny he injured Misty, but says they agreed he would pay only half of the bills.
Tell me about this argument.
I tell her, I don't want this in my home. I told her that when she got off the phone. We argued about it. I don't want this in my home. Like I said, my son comes over. So the next day, I go to work, and I come home, and she's on the phone with one of her ex-boyfriends that she's making this cocaine deal with. And I told her right then and there, don't do it in this house. I don't care if you go down to the payphone down the street. Don't do it in here.
And that precipitated this argument?
Yes, ma'am.
Truth to it?
Yes, it does.
Good. So, that's what the argument to it?
Yes, it does.
Good. So, that's what the argument was about. Well, that... say nothing. That doesn't excuse the fact, madam, that he put his hands on you.
No.
That doesn't excuse that. That's saying that he has a right to have you out of his house. If you're that dumb, that you would involve the household in a situation where even for a moment there was going to be a drug transaction taking place, even on the phone. That still doesn't excuse her, someone of your size, from giving her a shove outside, and she was clearly injured, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, somebody's got to pay for that. According to what she says, and according to what you seem to acknowledge, that you had agreed to pay for half of the medical bill. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That was your agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you didn't pay and she didn't pay, so the only one that got stiffed so far is the hospital that provided the service. That doesn't sound fair, right?
Right.
So, you have to pay, sir. You have to pay half. I'm going to round it off because I like round numbers. $1,177 we're going to take to $1,200, so the judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Back to your right.
I think the justice system is the best in the world. Thank you, Judge Judy. I'm sure she'll find something else to give me hell about before I leave. I got like another week or so.
And now the next case.
Parties on Urea versus Snyder. Step forward, please.
21-year-old Christy Urea says she and 24-year-old Christian Snyder were engaged to be married until she caught him cheating. She's suing for credit card bills and wedding expenses.
How old are you?
24.
Young looking. You're lucky.
Thank you.
But not smart. Because according to this complaint, you were engaged to the boss's daughter.
That would be me.
And you had a little tryst with somebody in the office. And then the engagement was over. And she says that you owe her money from all the things that she spent for the wedding and some other credit card bills. And you signed a note. And then she said you didn't pay. Is that what this is about?
Yes, he stopped paying. He had been paying for a while.
Okay, so that's pretty much what this is about. Was he working for your father at the time that you became engaged? Is that how you met him?
No, it's not.
Because this becomes important in this story later. He said he was coerced into signing this note. So who was he working for when you met him?
He was working for an automotive shop somewhere down in Montclair.
As a mechanic?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
And how long did you know him before he came to work for your father?
Probably a little over a year.
Is that right?
That's about right, yeah.
And what kind of business does your father have?
An automotive repair shop.
So it was the same kind of business?
Yes.
And what were you doing for her father? Working as a mechanic?
Yeah, and also helping run the office.
Do you have any brothers?
Yes, I have a brother.
Does he work in the business?
No.
Do you have any other sisters?
I have a sister, yes.
Does she work in the business?
No.
So there you have a business that could grow into a business that's yours. Did that ever occur to you?
Yeah.
Then you became engaged when?
March of this year.
And you made certain preparations?
Yes, we did.
Like what?
Well, we reserved the chapel to get married. I have wedding invitations that we had made up. I had a dress. My girls got their dresses.
When? Just stop playing. Stop playing. Look at me. When was this wedding supposed to take place?
August 30th.
And tell me when the engagement was broken.
July, beginning of July.
By whom and why?
By him, because he said he needed to find himself, and then I found out he was sleeping with one of the girls from my dad's work.
How did you find that out?
Because his mother called me at midnight and told me, because I guess she'd gone by his mom's house.
The girl had gone by his mom's house? Did you confront him with that?
Yep.
What'd he say?
He tried to talk his way around it, and I went to the girl's house, and his car was there, and he admitted to it. And then he tried to come back to me after that, and then he went back to her, and he, like, played a game for a little while.
Did you tell your father?
Oh, yes.
So you were willing to go through with this wedding, even though you found out that he was fooling around. So
oh, no.
Because you said he broke the engagement.
Yes, he broke the engagement.
By having this affair?
No, well, that's not, that's the reason why, but that's not the reason he gave me.
What was the reason he gave you?
He needed time alone. He needed to find himself.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Same girlfriend that you were meeting with while you were engaged to her?
At the time, there was nothing going on, but...
Just visiting?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christy Urea called off her wedding when she discovered her fiancé, Christian Snyder, was cheating. She's suing for wedding expenses and credit card bills. Christian says he paid Christy's college tuition, making them even.
So then you signed a note, right?
Yes.
It's right here.
Well, show it to him because that'll make it easier. I don't have to show him the copy that I have. That's the note that you signed, sir?
Yes.
Well, tell me about that, because you say you were coerced into signing the note.
I was told that if I signed it, it could be negotiated later, but I needed to sign it so I could get back to work, and I was afraid of losing my job.
Okay, let's start. You were presented with this note. By whom?
By her father.
In the office?
Yes.
You signed it?
Yes. I was afraid I'd lose my job if I didn't sign it, and I needed to pay child support.
So, you had a choice of either signing the note or going to find another job, right?
Yes, let's put it that way.
Did you honestly believe, sir, that her father was going to keep you on the payroll after he found out that you were fooling around with somebody else in his business?
He told me I could.
I got a bridge I want to sell you. You're 24 years old, and you tell me that you have child support that you have to pay.
Yes.
How many children do you have?
One.
How old?
She's going to be 5.
So you were a teenager when you had this child, right?
Yes.
Were you married to the child's mother?
Yes.
Is that your only marriage?
Yes.
So you signed this note for $3,000. Is that what it was?
$3,200, yes.
And according to you, you paid some of it.
Yes.
And she acknowledges that you paid some of it.
I wrote him a receipt every time he made me a payment.
Made you a payment, but money was also deducted from his check at work.
Yes, and my father wrote him receipts. I have those. That's how they started, and I continued writing them.
Let me see the receipts. Well, the last one was in September, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a balance due of $2,294.
That's correct.
And you're still suing for $3,000.
Yes.
Explain that to me.
I have a proposal I had done. He kicked holes in my wall and attempted to fix them.
When?
The last month that we were together, when he started acting really bizarre.
Before or after you had him sign this note?
Before.
Forget it. What's next?
The wedding invitations that I had to pay my mother back for.
You had ordered those invitations before this note, correct?
Yes.
Well, look, Miss Urea, we're not going to reinvent the wheel here.
I understand.
You, at a time, memorialized in writing and had him sign, your father had him sign, what he owed you as of a date certain. He, according to you, made certain payments. These are all the payments that she says she has. And do you get a copy of these receipts?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you have any question in your mind that the last receipt indicates that the balance due is $2,294?
I believe that's what it was, yes.
Okay.
I don't have any of the stuff she wants me to pay for. I also paid for her school, which I was never reimbursed for. I figured we'd just make it even.
Well, did you have an agreement with her to pay?
A verbal agreement she was going to pay me back, yes.
Well, explain that to me.
I gave, because her father would pay for school and she got good grades. So in order to get started, she needed money to go to school, to pay for first semester, and then her father would pick it up from there.
How much did you pay?
I don't exactly know how much it was.
Well, if you give me another reason why you don't owe this money. The first one I'm shelving. Give me another reason why you don't owe this money. The first one I'm shelving.
The whole time we were together, I was also helping her on her credit cards and stuff like that. Just from the past year, I have almost $2,500 in canceled checks and stuff to her credit cards.
So?
That's not
You both
true.
used her credit cards. You're clutching at straws, Mr. Snyder. You signed a note for $3,200. You're 24 years old. You've been married once, divorced once. You're the father of a child. That's the end of the story. If you had said to me that our father coerced you into signing this note because he took your left ankle and tied it around your right ear, right? And he was torturing you, that's against the law.
Well, you don't know her father. I mean, he has called me threatening me that he's going to come take it from me and stuff like that.
You mean when you didn't pay?
Yeah.
Well, that's a different story. When you didn't pay, I'm talking about when you signed the note. And according to you, you felt coerced into signing this note because you were afraid to lose your job.
Not only that, her father is extremely intimidating.
What do you mean is extremely intimidating, sir?
He just is. He's very
Like me?
hot-tempered.
Huh?
No, actually, he's more intimidating than you are.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Listen, you signed the note, you have an obligation to pay it. It's as simple as that. Not smart to fool around like that, Mr. Snyder. You living with anybody now, sir?
Yes.
Who?
My girlfriend?
Same girlfriend that you were
Yes.
meeting with while you were engaged to her?
At the time, there was nothing going on, but...
Just visiting? All right, what's the bottom line here? Judgment is for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,294. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Schnabel versus Timmon. Step forward, please.
59-year-old insurance broker Phil Schnabel says Steve Timmons broke his car windshield and bent his antenna in a fight over Phil's missing daughter.
All rise. Judge, this is case number 308 on the calendar in the matter of Schnabel versus Timmon. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Schnabel, this lawsuit really has its genesis in a problem with your daughter. Is that right?
That's correct.
From what I gather from these papers, and I try to sift through them because they were kind of difficult to follow, your daughter was in a relationship with a defendant.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Something happened, which you're going to tell me about, and you claim that he damaged your car.
That's correct.
Why don't you tell me how that came about, sir?
Your Honor, it was the evening of June 27th of this year, and I was at home. I lived about 35 miles from the residence that my daughter shared with Steve. It was about 9:30 in the evening. I received a phone call from my daughter saying, "Dad, come get me. I'm at Steve's." And she hung up.
Had she ever done that before, sir?
She had.
How many times?
Once.
How long had she been with him?
8 months, probably. That's a guesstimate.
And how old is she?
32.
Go ahead.
I called back and immediately, and Steve answered the phone, said that she had been drinking, that she was intoxicated, that he had thrown her out of the house, that she had left in her car, and I said, I'll be right there. I arrived, asked him, where is she? I don't know, don't care, in effect. Immediately across the street from the duplex that they shared is a large primitive area, probably 80, 100 acres of Douglas fir, undergrowth, nettles, blackberries, a very steep ravine. And at that point, we're standing in the front yard, and I heard her call out, "Help me." And it came from the vicinity, or in this primitive area. I took off toward the area, and a neighbor came out because I was calling her name, and by now it's 11 o'clock, 11:15, somewhere in that vicinity. And I was not getting an answer back. I just could hear, "Help me." And they came out, loaned me a flashlight. I tried to get down, but it was just too steep. I went back to the house and engaged Steve in a discussion. We got in an argument, and
Well,
I asked him.
tell me about that.
Well, I asked him, I said, why didn't you keep her here? If she was intoxicated, why didn't you keep her here? And he says, well, I couldn't control her, and I threw her out. She got in her car, she went down, missed the corner, ran into a neighbor's yard, blew a tire, took out a bunch of their cyclone fence, backed the car out, managed to get it back into the driveway, and then he threw her out again. And with that, obviously, she took off. I said, you know, you're part of the problem. And with that, he said, out of here. And I realized that he didn't care anything. Missed, and he jumped back, and we stood there looking at one another, and finally, for my daughter. And I hit him in the stomach and tried to hit him in the jaw, and for my daughter. And I hit him in the stomach and tried to hit him in the jaw. And I said, this isn't finding her. I'm leaving. I bent down, picked up my cell phone that had fallen on the ground, walked over to my car, around on the passenger side, opened the door, and in a rage, he came running over to the side of the passenger side of the car, took the heel of his hand, smashed it into the windshield. I said, now that's going to cost you. Got into the car, turned the key, and of course the power antenna came up. Well, he's standing right there, so he grabs that, he bends that over. He grabbed the windshield wiper, and he spun that around, and I backed out and left.
Does your daughter have a drinking problem?
She does.
For how long?
To my knowledge, about, probably 5, 6 years, as it turns out. It's been fairly
Before
well
she
hidden.
met Steve?
Yes.
All right, well, there are a lot of questions that I have for you, but I'm going to let Mr. Timmons... Steve?
Yes.
All right, well, there are a lot of questions that I have for you, but I'm going to let Mr. Timmons...
Well, his daughter has a problem drinking, and we've gone through it for a long time and tried on numerous occasions to get her help. I told her if there was another incident with the police that she was going to have to move out. And when it did happen, when she was released into Phil's custody.
You mean there had been an arrest before?
2 weeks before.
Is that right, Mr. Schnabel?
That's correct.
What happened in that incident?
Again, she was at my house drinking, and police got involved and arrested her for that. And that was the last straw.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You decided it wasn't your problem anymore. But you, just as a human being, you don't allow somebody who's intoxicated to go wandering off into the brush where she could have really been killed.
And later today,
You didn't give me the money until Friday.
Till Friday? You got the money way before then.
No, I didn't.
Now,
you know what? I kept a journal
Miss-
of everything.
Well, kept a journal
Miss
of
Landros,
you got the money.
Talk to the judge, please.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Phil Schnabel says his daughter's ex-boyfriend, Steve Timmons, damaged his car during a fistfight. Steve claims Phil's daughter is an alcoholic and caused the incident.
Tell me what happened with his car. After he assaulted you, where did he hit you?
In the chest and in the head.
That's pretty much what he says. What happened with his car?
I told him after he did that I was going to call the police, and he needed to leave my property. So we walked to his car. He was screaming and yelling. I was screaming and yelling. I hopped in his car, started it up, started revving the engine up, and just sitting there. As I approached his car and told him that he needed to leave and that I was going to call the police, he put it in gear. I pushed up against his car. I don't know why, but didn't know if he was coming after me or my car or what the deal was. He put it in gear.
So the bottom line is, on that evening, gentlemen, you both lost your tempers.
That's correct.
Mr. Schnabel. That you physically put your hands on the defendant first.
I did.
That you physically put your hands on the defendant first.
I did.
Out of anger.
I did.
And yet you're complaining that he, according to you, put his hands on your car out of anger, right?
After I'd indicated that I was leaving.
What difference does it make?
Okay.
I mean, you expect a certain amount of compassion as a result of your being very upset. You assaulted him because you were upset that he hadn't taken better care of your daughter, right?
That's correct.
He didn't sue you for assault.
There was some pushing prior to that, so. Well,
No, there
incidental
wasn't pushing.
That's correct.
You know, even according to your complaint, there wasn't incidental pushing. You lost your temper. While I'm sympathetic because you clearly have a situation in your family that's tragic, but Mr. Schnabel, I'm unsympathetic, sir, with your lawsuit against the defendant. Unsympathetic for whatever damage he caused to your car, because you expect him to understand your frustration, which resulted in you really assaulting him. I mean, you told me in your papers. You punched him in the stomach. You said you hit him in the head. And yet even if he got so angry because he was assaulted that he smashed the windshield of your car, which was in movement, clearly.
No, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
It was just sitting there? You were sitting in the car?
I wasn't even in the car yet when he smashed the windshield.
You mean you assaulted him and then he went and hit your car?
That's correct. I was...
Instead of hitting you, he hit your car.
It wasn't because he didn't try, Your Honor.
But you hit him first,
That's
Mr.
correct.
Schnabel.
I did.
All I can tell you, sir, is this. Anger is a much easier emotion for people to live with than sorrow or frustration. It's much easier to be angry with somebody else than it is to internalize within your own family situation. He didn't create the situation with your daughter. According to you, it's been going on for a long time, even before she met him. So it's not his fault. I mean, if it were his fault, they would have been together for years and he would have been an enabler with her. But I don't get that sense. I get the sense you've been having difficulty with her for a long time. He got frustrated, finally. Mr. Timmon, what you did wasn't the right thing. You understand that, sir?
I do.
There are certain things that you can do to be protective just as a human being. I understand that you were frustrated. I understand that she had a problem. You had a short-term relationship. You decided it wasn't your problem anymore, right? And you wanted clear of it. But you, just as a human being, you really been killed. You would have felt terrible. It's a very unfortunate situation. Really been killed. You would have felt terrible. It's a very unfortunate situation. But Mr. Schnabel, the defendant understood that. I have no countersuit here for assault. He certainly didn't press charges against you for assault, which he could have. The damage to your car was $400. That's what the punch is going to cost you, sir. This case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Back to your right, please. Wood versus Boughton. Step forward, please.
32-year-old restaurant manager Guy Gatewood is suing 29-year-old photographer Nicole Boughton for false arrest.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 282 on the calendar in the matter of Gatewood versus Boughton. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Have a seat, gentlemen.
Let's see if I can unravel this rather complicated complaint. Mr. Gatewood, you and Miss Boughton were friends in 1995.
Yes.
And in that year, you sold her a used car.
Yes.
How much did you sell her the car for?
A sum of $2,000.
And she was supposed to repay you at the rate of $250 a month. Is that right? Yes.
Yes.
And you say in your answer that he was pretty reasonable about late payments and that sort of thing.
Right.
But you were paying off this car. What kind of car was it?
A VW Bug.
They're cute.
Yeah.
Right? So there came a time sometime a couple of years later when she hadn't been making her payments and you were worried about the insurance on the car. You decided to repossess the car.
Yes.
So in the still of the night, without telling her, right?
Oh, no.
Did you tell her you were going to repossess the car?
There was a letter sent to her, yes.
That said what? If you don't, I will?
What?
If you don't pay, I will repossess the car. Right?
Right.
But then you didn't tell her when you were going to repossess the car. Day and date.
It gave her till the end of the month, which was...
Mr. Gatewood, do you understand what I'm saying to you? You didn't tell her when you were going to repossess the car.
The exact day and time, and no.
Right.
No.
So, without telling her when you were going to repossess the car, this former friend of yours, you went to where the car was parked.
Yes.
And took it.
Yes.
And the registration was still in your name.
Yes.
Because that was your arrangement.
Yes.
She did what any normal person would do, getting up in the morning. You looked outside and you saw...
No car.
So you...
Called the cops.
You got arrested.
Pulled over, yeah.
For stealing your own car.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What people do to each other and to themselves. This is really so fascinating. I was fascinated when I read this complaint. Now, ultimately, it was okay because you spoke to the police and were able to convince them that it was your car.
Yes.
How long were you in custody?
About an hour and a half.
Was it scary?
Yeah, to say the least.
You ever been arrested before?
Never. I've never even darned bracelets.
What? Did they actually put you in handcuffs?
Yeah, I was on my knees and they put me in cuffs.
Tell me about that. I'm really curious to know.
I was driving home and I noticed the cop following me, and I eventually made it home and I pulled into my parking lot, or my carport, and I get the lights and I'm thinking, okay, what's this all about? And I get out of the car and I get this spotlight in my eyes and he says, throw the keys to the ground. I'm like, okay. He's like, turn around, put your hands on your head. I'm like, okay. And then he says, walk backwards towards my voice. And I did. He says, stop. And I feel something on my back and he says, get on your knees. I'm like, execution time. And they cuff me. And I'm like, am I under arrest? And he says, no, you're in custody. I said, can you please explain the difference to me?
Did you say that to him?
Yes.
Did he have a sense of humor?
Not at this time. And so he says, can you explain to me instead why you're driving a stolen vehicle? I said, this isn't a stolen vehicle, this is my vehicle. And he says, what's your name? And I said, Guy Gatewood. He says, well, you got that part right. Then, explain this to me.
Had you known at that time that she had called the police?
No. This is just like completely...
So what you were suing her for is for having called the police and having had you arrested falsely.
Mm-hmm.
So you want some damages for that. And then you want some money for the car.
There's still a balance due on it.
Okay. Well, first let's take care of the car business, and then we'll get into this arrest business, because I have to figure out exactly how much, if anything, you're owed on the car, because she says that she paid money towards the car, and she is countersuing you for the car, and then you're countersuing him, Miss Barton, for some nonsense, which I categorize as nonsense, which is the emotional distress of not having your car, something like that, which I'm not even going to think about because that's a lot of baloney. Now, how much did you pay for this VW Bug, sir?
How much did I pay for it?
That was my question. I'm sure you have an answer.
Initially, when I got the car, I paid $500. I then fixed the car up, put a brand new motor in it, fixed the body, did the interior as well. It came to about $2,400.
Let us assume, for the moment, you paid $2,300 for the car.
Okay.
All right? How many payments did you make on this car?
I had about 2 more payments left. I owed him about $600 more on the car.
How many payments did she make on the car?
She made 4 payments on the car. She only owed $425 on the car.
So she paid you in total how much?
$1,575.
Okay. And how much money did you sell the car for, sir? Because your complaint says that you sold the car after you repossessed it.
I've resold the Volkswagen for $200.
Why?
For the condition that it was in when I got it back, it wasn't worth much more than that.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
The idea that he came at night and took it was a total passive-aggressive, miserable move that is typical of Guy Gatewood.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Guy Gatewood says he was embarrassed when he was handcuffed and led away after he repossessed Nicole Boughton's car. Now he wants payment for the car and the emotional distress.
Who did you sell it to?
A neighbor downstairs for his wife so she could go back and forth to work.
Let me see the bill of sale. What year Volkswagen was this?
It's a 71 Super Beetle.
Mr. Gatewood.
Yes.
You were driving this car when the police pulled you over.
Yes, I was.
Where were you driving it from, sir?
I was driving it from Shooter's Bar in Huntington Beach.
What is the distance between this barn and your home?
2 miles.
And how long had you been driving the car from the time you repossessed it until the time they repossessed you?
It was stored most of the time. Maybe 2 or 3 times I took it out to keep it running. I also have another Blazer and a motorcycle that I use with me.
Now, Mr. Gatewood, just because you do a bill of sale for $200, sir, doesn't mean that I believe that you sold this car for $200, because the car was clearly a drivable vehicle. Drivable vehicle, cute little car, almost vintage, you know, 71 VW Bug. Was a convertible or not?
No, it's not convertible.
So just because you wrote $200 here doesn't necessarily mean I believe that you were paid $200 for it in total.
I'm not the only signature on that statement.
You're talking about the buyer?
The buyer also.
Oh, well, it would certainly serve. The buyer would certainly say that he only paid $200 for the car, because that means his tax when he has to register the car is a lot less. People do that all the time. It's wrong and it's illegal, but people do it all the time when they sell cars that are used cars. They say, hey, listen, put down $200, I'll give you $800 for the car, and then I only have to pay tax on $200. You understand that, Mr. Gatewood?
I understand your point of view.
Now, what did you, after you found out that the car wasn't there, you called the police. When did you realize that he had taken the car?
About 3 days after I made the report. I didn't hear from him. I called him. As soon as I called the police, I was like, your car's been stolen. I know I still owe you money on it. I'll pay you the money I owed on it, but just to let you know, it's been stolen. So if you get any calls about it being found, then call me back. I didn't hear from him.
And he didn't tell you that he had taken the car?
No.
Right?
Right.
Right.
That
I was told by legal advice not to speak with her.
Just a second.
Sure.
She told you that she had reported the car stolen.
No, she didn't tell me that she
What
called
did
the
she
police.
say?
She left on the answer machine. She goes, I don't know if you have the car or not, but it's not up here. Give me a call. And that was it.
And did you call her?
No.
Well, didn't you think that she might call the police and report the car stolen?
Yes, but I didn't think they'd take a stolen police report without proof of ownership.
Well, then, that's your problem, Mr. Gatewood. So I'm dismissing that part of your complaint for having you arrested, because it seems to me she did the right thing by calling you immediately. And if you wanted to be smart, you could have had a friend or someone else call her and say, he doesn't want to speak to you personally, he has the car. When did you find out that he had possession of the car?
Like I said, it was about 3 days after. When he didn't call and tell me, make any comment about it being stolen, is when I knew that he must have taken it. I mean, because that's a part of his character that I wouldn't doubt. So a friend of mine was like, do you think he took it? And I'm like, you know, he's just miserable of enough person to have done that, but I'm not going to call him until I chill out, because I was pissed. I had no notification.
Say, listen to me, you're in court. Try angry.
Angry. I was angry. I was out of control. No, I wasn't out of control. I was just angry. I was amazed that he could have done anything so low without any notification. But like I said, it's part of the nature that I knew of him.
So what did you do? Did you call the police?
I called the police, and I said, I made a report a couple days ago. This is the number. Scratch that report. He goes, well, was the car stolen or wasn't it stolen? I said, well, it was taken without notification by its registered owner, so I don't know if you'd call that stolen. But it's not stolen. It's in the owner's hands. When I got a call from the Huntington Police Department a couple months later saying, we recovered your car, I knew something definitely went wrong with the reports. I called him immediately. I'm like, Guy, we need to talk to you about your car. There's some problems. If you need my help with anything, call me, and I will totally help you straighten it out. I never heard from him.
He should have told you. He should have notified you immediately that he had repossessed the car. That's what you do when you repossess a car. You tack a notice on the door. This property has been repossessed.
I sent her a registered letter.
Did she pick it up?
She refused it.
Can I see it?
It was...
Well, that's all right. She refused, so there was no notice. If you had a receipt that she had received it, that's one thing. Why didn't you just leave a message on her machine that you had the car, sir?
Because I couldn't prove that she would acknowledge the fact that she received any information from me.
You could have done both. Right? You could have done both, you know?
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You buy a used car that's 25 years old. Listen, anything that reaches 25 years old starts to go downhill. Believe me, I know. You know, every year it gets a little bit worse.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Guy Gatewood says Nicole Boughton owes him for a car and a false arrest. Nicole says Guy owes her for payments and repairs she made on the car.
In any event, Mr. Gatewood, I'm really sort of surprised that you repossessed the car anyway, since she owed you just a couple of $100s on the car.
I waited 9 months, 3 of which she lived with me, to receive any form of further payment towards it, and there was nothing coming in. I sent her a letter saying, you know...
What do you mean she lived with you? She lived with you as boyfriend and girlfriend,
No,
or she lived with you as a tenant?
She was a tenant in one of my... I had a spare bedroom. She rented it out.
And while she was living with you, she was driving this car, and
Yes.
and she did not make any payments.
No.
But then she moved out. But she paid you almost everything that was owed on the car.
75% of the thing, yes.
How long did you have the car?
I don't know, about a year and a half, year?
2 years, almost.
Yeah. We can talk about the repairs of this perfect car that I paid twice of what it was worth when I first bought it, and I had to immediately put in at least $1,000 on this perfect car. That the money went to his buddies at his garage who charged me so much for repairs.
Didn't. Just a second. Nobody forced you to go to his garage, right?
Well, I thought they
Ms.
would.
Barton, nobody forced you to go to his
You're right.
garage.
You're right.
And when you buy a used car that's 25 years old...
But when it's supposedly in good condition...
What everybody
in
says.
great condition...
Everybody says it's a cream puff. Isn't that the right word? It's It's a perfect car.
Anyway, he knew of these repairs, and that's why he wasn't getting some of the car payments on time, was because I was putting so much money into fixing this cream
Listen,
puff.
he's not your partner in this tragedy.
What's that?
He's not your partner in this car tragedy. You buy a used car that's 25 years old. Listen, anything that reaches 25 years old starts to go downhill. Believe me, I know. You know, every year it gets a little bit worse, right? Cars are no different from people. So you buy a 25-year-old car, you be prepared, even if the owner of the car says it's in great shape, to pay whatever it is. If you get disgusted paying for the repairs, then you sell it. But you don't charge it off. Because a bank wouldn't understand if you went to a bank and you say, well, I had to pay repairs for the car, and I had to pay my phone bill, and I had to pay this, and I had to pay that, so I can't pay you this month. They wouldn't have tolerated it. But I have a problem, because you two clearly knew each other. You were friends. You knew each other for a long time. She lived in your house. And, Mr. Gatewood, I don't understand why you treated this in nothing more than what apparently is an arm's-length transaction by going and repossessing the car, not notifying her immediately. Not notifying her immediately. Even if you send her a registered letter, that takes a couple of days to get there. Any normal person coming out of their house, not seeing their car, would call the police. Then you are at risk, sir. So you caused that problem yourself by repossessing the car without advising her that you were going to do it, or at least repossessing the car at midnight, tacking a notice on her door, I have in fact repossessed the car. If you have any problem with that, I'll see you in court. Whatever it is. But you didn't do that. So if you got arrested, that's your problem. So that part of your lawsuit is dismissed. And the only thing that I have to try to figure out is who owes who money for this car.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Now, you have any proof that you paid $2,300 for this car?
That was all in parts, receipts, stuff like that.
Well, let me see.
I did bring anything like that with me because I didn't feel it would be necessary for today.
And you say you bought it for $500?
Yes.
So let's see how much you made. So you don't have any proof of how much you put in to have it fixed for me. So let's say you put in nothing. So you bought it for $500. You got $1,575 from her, and you got another, according to you, $200 from your neighbor. 5, 7, 12. So far, you got $1,775 for a car that you paid $500 for. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Now, on the other hand, Miss Barton, you had the use of a car for almost 2 years.
Right.
At about $750 a year, right?
Plus all the repairs.
That's what happens when you have a car. You do repairs on a car when you have a car. So for $750 a year, you had basic transportation.
Basic, very basic.
Did you have another car, or just this car?
It was great.
It was great. So that seems to me as if, that's nice, 12 months. That was out to what, less than $50 or $60 a month to own a car? That's not bad. You have insurance for this car?
Not anymore.
Did you have?
Did I have?
Paid up insurance all the time?
All the time, no, not all the time.
Well, that was one of the reasons you repossessed the car, right?
I don't know.
Just a second.
He had more excuses for taking the car.
Let me ask you a question. No, he's very clear in his complaint. He says he was concerned because the car's in his name, and you told him you didn't have money to keep up the insurance. So he was afraid if he got into an accident in this car, they were going to come and take away his other car and everything else that he owns, right? So you didn't have insurance on the car,
okay?
Right? Mm-hmm. Oy. Sounds to me as if you made out okay, Mr. Gatewood, in the sale of the car. Sounds to me, Miss Barton, that you brought on some of this on your own, had no insurance on a car. You certainly weren't going to get stuck if the car was in an accident, or if you hurt somebody, he was going to get stuck. He's the registered owner, and you have nothing because you couldn't even make the car payment, so they couldn't go after you. So it sounds to me as if you two folks absolutely deserve each other. Your complaint is dismissed, your countersuit is dismissed. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next...
Parties on Brazos versus Ventura. Step forward, please.
20-year-old student Timothy Brazos says Jimmy Ventura seriously injured him when he hit him with a skateboard during an all-out fight at a party.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 238 on the calendar in the matter of Brazos versus Ventura. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated.
Mr. Brazos, according to these papers, you claim that the defendant assaulted you by hitting you with a skateboard. You were severely injured.
Mm-hmm.
You want him to pay for your medical and dental bills, as well as pain and suffering.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Tell me when this happened.
Friday the 13th, 1996.
Okay. Tell me what happened.
Okay. First, we were having a party at my house, and he was there.
Who's he?
Jimmy's brother, I believe. That's his brother.
This young man here.
Yes.
Okay.
He was there, and he came and peed on our lawn. Some of the party goers at the party didn't like it, so they confronted him and said, "Why'd you do that?" And I guess there's some push came to shove, and they started fighting, and they chased him off the lawn. And
The
then,
brother.
Yeah. And then he came back shortly later, about 10 minutes later, with Jimmy and about 20 people, and they're all wearing white tank tops and had tattoos and shaved heads. Some were holding pipes and bats. And there was about 10 people left at the house having the party with me. And then all of a sudden, him and his brother rushed the house. Jimmy was one of them. Jimmy grabbed a skateboard, hit me in the head, and I fell to the ground. And he walked away, and I walked to the next house and went and got treatment for my mouth.
Was he arrested?
No, he wasn't.
Well, he was at one point arrested because there's a criminal trial going on.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Later on, I think about 4 or 5 days later, he was arrested.
Did he come to be arrested? Did you identify him?
Yes. I went down to the police station and picked his picture out and a list of people.
Yes, sir.
Okay. One night, on Friday the 13th, okay, he had a party, he had 2 kegs and 4 bands. My brother was supposed to go out to the party because he was invited by my uncle. And they jumped my brother. A bunch of people jumped him. I wasn't there.
Step up here. You're a gunner?
Yes, sir.
Did you use his lawn as a bathroom? Come on, let's go.
All right, well, I was invited to his birthday party by my uncle. I went out there, my friend took a pee on his lawn, and then they got around him, huddled around him. I went over there to try to settle it. A guy got in my face, and I was about this close to my face. I pushed him, and then I was struck with a bat in the head and the side. And then I was basically gang rushed down the street, and that's where I went and caught my breath.
You caught your breath. And when did you call your brother?
I didn't call him.
I never seen him at all that night. He left. Supposedly he got jumped. I was walking through the apartments, and this is how I found about it. My uncle told me that Gunner might have gotten jumped. So I saw Tim, I guess, whatever his name is, with a group of people, like about 40 guys, sit in front of his house laughing on how they beat some guy up. I took off. I was with 2 girls that I was with all night, and I went to their house. And I sat there, and I saw my mom, Elaine. She drove by she was going down the street, and I saw, I'm like, what is she doing out here, 3 o'clock in the morning? But anyways, I came up to the scene, and I saw my mom trying to break up a fight, and some guy cold clocked my mom, like, leveled her out. She got a broken nose. She got, fat lip, and I ran in there, and I socked the guy that hit my mom.
Wasn't this young man?
No, it wasn't even him.
Yeah.
But that was the only thing that I came into this fight. I hit the guy that hit my mom.
I'm looking at this. You say in your answer, sir,
Mhm.
that there was another fight 4 days later.
Yeah, there was.
When he got beat up, and he wants me to pay because the apartments belong to my grandmother and Tim Smell's money. So according to you, the injuries that he sustained happened 4 days later. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Can I see your medical reports, please?
Sure.
The statement that you make here is that he got beat up 4 days later.
Yeah, he got beat up 4 days later.
He got beat up 4 days later, and he wants you to pay for it. It's not true, because the first medical report of injury was the morning of this incident. This incident happened late at night on the 13th.
Yes.
And his first report of injuries was on the 14th, which means that this stuff that you suggest about his being beaten up 4 days later and he just wants you to pay for it because he feels as if your family has money, I want you to put that out of your mind. His injuries were sustained on the 13th. Now, you are Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Step up, please. You're their mother?
Yes, I am.
What do you know about this evening?
This boy has falsely identified because this boy wasn't there but 5 minutes. I don't doubt that Tim didn't get hit by somebody, but it wasn't by this young man right
You
here.
don't know that.
I was there the whole time, Your Honor.
No, you weren't.
He was
Yes,
hit?
I was, Your Honor. I was there
Mrs.
the
Schwartz,
whole time.
you weren't there the whole time.
Yes, I was there the entire time.
Tim said he got
all
hit.
the way until when the officers told us to go home.
I thought you got hit.
I did
She
get
did.
hit.
We sat
And when
and
you
talked
just
to
a
cops
second,
for 4
when you got
hours.
hit, where were you?
I was
on the
right
ground?
in front of their apartment,
Were
right
you-
where he says he claims he got
Were
hit.
you on the ground?
Pardon?
Were you on the ground? Pardon. But
Yeah, not the entire night.
I
I
didn't
was
say
hit.
on
I
the
was
entire
knocked
night.
out.
I said down. Were you knocked down?
Yes, I was.
So when you were knocked down, you were on the ground. You didn't see what was going on all around you.
No, but I wasn't down for that long. of a
Mr.
time.
Schwartz.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
For one, I didn't hit him, but anyways, if you think about it, can you run 20 feet with a skateboard and have a skateboard truck and only chip one tooth? Can you do that? It's quietly impossible.
Would you believe this? You missed the point, sir.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Timothy Brazos claims Jimmy Ventura injured him when a party erupted into a neighborhood brawl.
Mr. Schwartz, what I'm telling you is, you did not see what was going on around you all the time. That doesn't mean that I am yet convinced that this was the person who hit you, sir. And I don't doubt the fact that you got hit. Because in your complaint, you say, because I read it very carefully, my back was turned to him when I got hit.
Well, I meant my side. You know, I was like,
What
I
you
was
meant,
like this.
sir, in your sworn complaint, and what you wrote, then are two different things, because you swore to this. You want to see it?
No, I know what I know what I wrote.
You said, the reason I should win is I did not hit him at all. My back was turned to him when I got hit.
Well, yeah. I mean, my side was turned to him. I'm more like my back. As I got hit, I could see who hit me.
You mean, sir, listen to me. And I'm not saying that it definitely was not this young man. You have just told me that you never saw him before. That night was the first night you saw him. That there was a lot of confusion going on because there are lots of people out there, 40 people from your side, from the other group's side, so there are a lot of people, a lot of commotion. According to your own statement, you'd had a couple of beers that night. You didn't want to get blotto drunk, but you'd had a couple of beers that night. So you'd had something to drink. It was late at night because the party was in the process of winding down. And your back was turned towards the person who hit you. So what you're telling me is in the split second that you turned around, you saw this young man, and you are able to 100% say to me today, you are absolutely positive that this was the person who assaulted you with the skateboard.
Yes, because after he hit me, I saw who it was. He walked away, and I saw him.
He walked away. You fell to the ground when you were hit?
I fell to my knee and my arm.
You fell to the knees in your arm, and the person who hit you...
He was standing right there waiting for me to get up. I didn't get up for about 3 or 4 seconds.
Oh, you didn't tell me that before. You said they were walking away. Why would they be standing right over you?
To see if I'd get up and probably attack him back. Because he'd probably want to be ready if I would do something like that. But that's not what happened. He was right there after he hit me. He hit me. I got up. As I was getting up, I'm looking at him the whole time. He's standing there, you know, kind of backing away. And then he just goes off in his way, and I run upstairs in the house. My brother saw that happen.
Did you have skateboards in your house?
Yeah, they were on the lawn. It'd be very easy for him to grab one and hit me. I know for a fact it was him.
I'm not sure.
I'm positive. I'm 100% positive.
Okay, he says that I hit him and I took off. Well, if he would have known and he knew what I was wearing, which he doesn't because he said I was wearing a white striped shirt, I was sitting in front of those stairs for 4 hours talking to cops.
And that's not what he was wearing. And if he's
And
so
that's not what I was
positive,
wearing. When he
Your
said
Honor,
to court, in court, he's all, I saw him. He's wearing a white shirt. I was not wearing a white
I
shirt.
never said he was
that
wearing a
night.
white shirt. I said he was wearing a striped shirt.
You said it's in your testimony in the criminal
Wearing a
case.
striped shirt.
Listen to me.
It says a white
After
striped
this
shirt,
happened,
T-shirt.
wrong.
After this happened,
We've
Well,
got
that's
the
what he said.
transcript.
after this whole
Should've brought it.
altercation, were you sitting? You say you were sitting and talking to the police?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I sat
Hey,
there
Mr.
for 4
Schwartz,
hours.
stop it! I'm talking to him. You say you were sitting and talking to the police where?
Right on the stairs. We sat down right when my mom got hit. I showed up right when she got hit. I wasn't even there before when the fight started. I came up when the fight was already going on. I came up and I saw my mom get hit, and I hit the guy that hit her. I got maced. We both sat down on the stairs, supposedly where he says he ran up the stairs, whatever. I sat there. We were sitting there, and the fight was still increasing. I was still sitting there. The cops come up. My mom had she had like blood coming from her nose, and she had a fat lip, and so we were sitting there, and she was getting taken care of. The ambulance came up, and we were talking to him, and we sat there for 4 hours.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It doesn't make sense to me that our own son struck her, sir. Common sense would dictate to me that that did not happen.
In the case involving Mrs. Schwartz and her sons, there was no common sense involved.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy.
Timothy Brazos is suing Jimmy Ventura for injuries suffered during a neighborhood brawl. Jimmy is countersuing for pain and suffering, loss of education, and financial hardship.
Did they ever apprehend the person who hit you?
No, they didn't.
Yeah, we tried to tell my
We
mom,
tried to tell them who hit me.
and they would not listen
They wouldn't
to us
listen.
at all.
That sounds very peculiar to me.
This whole thing is peculiar.
No, just a second. That sounds very peculiar to me. I mean, here you have a woman who's in charge of a building complex, who apparently is injured when the police arrive, and the police will not take your complaint about the person who hit you?
No. All they kept saying is their side, Tim and his roommates kept saying that Jimmy was the one that hit me. And I was trying to convince...
Jimmy was the one that hit you?
Yes.
You mean your son was
Yes.
the one who hit you?
That's what they were, that's
it.
what they
were
were
trying to say.
saying.
They try to say,
That's what they were saying the whole night, that Jimmy's the one who hit me, not Tim. He hit me. And the fella that hit me, if he's so sure it was Jimmy, then who I'm sure
Did
is hit
anybody
me is
suggest
him.
to the police
Because the boy that hit me was that boy's size right there.
No, Mrs. Schwartz, this boy didn't. He didn't hit you. Come on,
The
get
boy
it together.
that hit me was as tall as him.
Good.
But I won't 100% identify him because I didn't see him. It happened too
That's-
quick. But it
that's
was
right.
he was a tall, big boy.
Okay. Did anybody suggest that this woman was assaulted by her own son?
No.
Huh?
No.
It's in the police
Did
report.
you? Let me see
I
the
didn't
police
suggest
report.
it.
I didn't bring it.
it should have been
Well,
all of
because
You're the father.
Yes.
You know anything about this?
Yes.
I'm going to hear you.
I just recently retired from the Los Angeles Police Department, and I had contact that night with my son, and then I contacted Lewis Martin, who's the detective handling the case in Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. And as she stated, there were independent wits from the commotion that was going on outside that did, in fact, is in the police report that she was struck by her own son during the melee.
Oh, just a second.
Just to let you know that part.
No, you can't let me know that. I don't know that. I don't know unless I hear a witness who saw it.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes. I
Because you understand that.
Yes.
And it doesn't make sense to me that our own son struck her, sir. Common sense would dictate to me that that did not happen.
In the case involving Mrs. Schwartz and her sons, there was no common sense involved.
Oh, I believe that there's common sense and logic involved in this whole thing. I believe that there was a party.
Yes.
I believe that this young man came uninvited. I believe that he brought somebody else with him that was also uninvited to the party. I believe that the other person he invited to the party went outside, either with him or without his assistance, and urinated on the lawn right in front of the house. I believe that there was some altercation.
Yes.
Because there were some guests at the party that were irate at what they saw because here were uninvited guests using the front lawn of your home as a toilet. Clearly inappropriate.
Yes.
I even believe he probably got roughed up a little bit and went home and got a whole group of people. Probably included in that group was his brother, who came back to the house looking for nothing but trouble. So far, it's as clear as a bell to me. The only thing that's not 100% clear to me, sir, is whether your son could make an appropriate identification.
I can clear that up.
Hmm?
I can clear that up.
Go ahead.
Okay, before this night, I've never seen him before. I would have no reason to pick his face out of a 6-person lineup. I'd never seen him before that night. How would I go into the sheriff's station and pick his face out of a lineup, even if I've never seen him before? And if he's not the one, if he's the one who hit me, I'd pick him out for sure.
Well, how long have you been living in that complex?
At the time, about a month. He never came by before, ever.
Had you seen him before?
Never.
That's not true.
The other brother.
He saw both of my sons when he was at my house signing
We
contracts.
used to do maintenance work
I saw
on
him
apartments.
one day when we came there with one of my roommate's parents. I saw Gunner walk to his room. That's the only person I ever saw.
Didn't
I
see
never
the
saw
other
Jimmy.
brother.
Never.
You have a photograph of the lineup?
No. But the police made me pick it, and they brought it to a civil criminal trial.
Pick it.
Explain to me, sir, exactly what was shown to you when you came into the police station.
I went to the police
Just
station.
4 days later, you went into the police station.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And he showed me
Who's he?
The police officer.
Martin.
Yes.
Detective Martin showed
Yes.
me a list. There's 6 people on this paper, on this photo thing, and he was one of them. And I picked out the guy that I saw hit me, just like that. I don't know who the other 5 people were.
And you had never seen him before?
Never.
For one, I didn't hit him, but anyways, if you think about it, can you run 20 feet with a skateboard and have a skateboard truck and only chip 1 tooth? Can you do that? It's quietly impossible.
Could you believe this?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You missed the point, sir.
No, that's
Either they have convinced me by a preponderance of the evidence that you were the one who hit him, or they haven't. And whether his head got cracked open, or whether he chipped 1 tooth, or whether he doesn't have one of his own teeth in his mouth as a result of that is really not the issue. The issue is, did you hit him?
No, I didn't hit
And
him.
quite
It's a lie.
frankly, he has convinced me that you did. All right, what were your unreimbursed medical expenses, sir?
Okay, and that's where my dad was here to, he knows
Okay.
exactly how that went.
Yes,
Out
sir.
of pocket, I lost about $1,600 approximately, and we have an $800 root canal due on the same tooth because it died.
Well, the only question is, what are the damages for pain and suffering? Because your unreimbursed bills, you certainly are entitled to. Because I find that there is sufficient evidence by a preponderance of the evidence so that I am satisfied that based on the fact that you picked him out of a lineup, and the lineup was a 6-person photographic lineup, and I am satisfied that you had not seen him before. I believe you that you had not seen him before. So there would have been no reason for you to pick out this person who just happens to be the brother of the person who had an argument with your partygoers a few hours before. There would have been no reason for you to pick him out. That coupled with the fact that usually when someone is injured, they want the right person arrested. They want the person who caused them pain to suffer, right?
Right.
So you would not like to identify the wrong person. It would have been just as easy for you to identify this person because he had been there. Did not. You identified somebody who you had never seen before, him. So I'm satisfied that by a preponderance of the evidence, you have established that he caused you injury. And I'm giving you what you're suing for, which is $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right. Excuse me, step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy, 39-year-old attorney Marilyn Thomason says 29-year-old Bruno Herzog owes her for rent and utilities from when they lived together. Herzog says Marilyn is harassing him because she wants him as her boyfriend.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 369 on the calendar in the matter of Thomason versus Herzog. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have seats.
Miss Thomason, this defendant, according to you, lived in your home, and when he left, he owed you money for rent, utilities, etc.
That's correct.
Do you have a two-family home, or was he living in your apartment?
I rent a large home, and he was the first roommate that I advertised for after my long-term roommate died of cancer a year ago.
So he lived in a home that you rented?
Correct.
So he had his own room?
Yes.
Own bath?
Yes.
And kitchen privileges, is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. So tell me about the rental agreement.
He answered the and the recycler, and we agreed on $600 a month plus 1/4 of the utilities.
Is that correct, sir?
No, it isn't, Your Honor.
Well, let's start. Did you answer an ad?
Yes, I did.
And you went to her home?
That's correct.
And what agreement did you come to?
Basically, as far as the rental agreement concerned, the rent was going to be $450 per month, and I also gave a $250 deposit at that time.
What about the utilities, sir?
The utilities were going to be fairly...
What about the utilities, sir?
The utilities were going to be fairly split.
Fairly split is not an arrangement, sir. Fairly split sounds ridiculous when you're talking between two strangers. Were you supposed to pay half the utilities, 1/4 of the utilities? What were you supposed to pay?
Basically, there was no straight agreement or arrangement on that. It was going to be split between... There was Marilyn and her 2 sons, plus her boyfriend also living there at the time.
What month did you move in?
I moved in the 1st of March.
Of this year?
That's correct.
And how many months did you live there?
I lived there for 6 months, Your Honor.
And how many months' rent did you pay?
I paid 2 months' rent, and at that time I had given notice of to vacate the day following.
So you paid for 2 months?
And the utilities, correct.
And you lived there for 6 months?
That's correct.
And you lived there March and April, and then you said you were leaving?
That's correct, Your Honor.
But you didn't leave?
But I did not leave.
And you stayed on for an additional 4 months and paid nothing. Why not?
At the time of notice of vacation, to vacate the premises, she had given me, which I have documented, written notices and a note from her stating that it would be okay for me to stay there as long as I want, for free, under no obligation to pay for rent or utilities.
Let me see the note.
Basically what I have and like to present to you at this time.
Don't tell me basically, just show me the note.
If I can present this to you, Your Honor.
Just the note. Show it to her, Bird, would you please?
That's one of several notes. I had a little trouble communicating with him, so I wrote notes.
I just want to see what it says here. Why did you give her notice that you were leaving, sir?
It was a very uncomfortable situation for me from the very beginning. I just felt it was appropriate for me to leave. It was just an unbearable situation in the house.
Okay. Tell me why it was an unbearable situation.
Basically, the first and foremost reason was the harassment that I've been receiving from her to somehow come into a physical relationship with her.
You mean from the time you moved in?
That's correct.
March and April?
That's correct.
And it was unbearable?
It was somewhat uncomfortable. It was something uncomfortable and unbearable, yes, Your Honor.
So you stayed on, you moved in March, you stayed in April. And after this unbearable situation, you stayed May, June, July, and August for another 4 months.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Why?
Basically, she had, we had spoken and she had agreed that she was going to try to basically stop some of the inappropriate comments that she had made. I also have a note stating to my mother that she had made sexually indiscreet comments and harassing comments.
Like what?
She would say, she'd note to her friends, "This is my little houseboy, lives here, isn't he cute?" She would tell her friends to come over when I was around. She'd say things like, it'd be great if you wouldn't wear a shirt around the house. You have such a great body. Just a lot of small remarks like that. I mean, there's some photos.
Slowly she turned.
There's some photos here that I have.
Mr. Herzog.
Yes.
If a big guy like you doesn't like the heat, then you get out of the kitchen. Sounds to me, that's what it means. Unbearable. So you leave. Leave. If a situation is unbearable, That's what it means. Unbearable. So you leave. You didn't leave. You sponged.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Your beauty is going to go one day, sir. I know you must think you're a very handsome man and you can get away with murder. But anybody who can twist the truth, like you can, is not good looking in my eyes.
And later today,
I'm not a criminal. This is the first thing I've ever been in trouble for in my life. This has taken up way too much of my time already.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Attorney Marilyn Thomason is suing Bruno Herzog for unpaid rent and utilities. Bruno is countersuing Marilyn for sexual harassment.
Show me the rent receipts for May, June, July, and August. Show me your canceled checks to her in the amount of, let's say, your amount, $450 a month.
Okay, excuse me, Your Honor. Basically, the two things that I have here is I have, in the lawsuit, it states from the plaintiff that she states that there is a written agreement. In fact, she refused to ever provide me with a rental agreement.
Mr. Herzog, what word that I just said didn't you understand? Show me the rent receipts from May, June, July, and August.
That's also part of the situation that I have here is that in the beginning there was cash paid to her. I had asked for receipts on that on several occasions. That was refused to me. I felt that she said to me this was for...
So is what you're telling me, Mr. Herzog, that you paid her in cash
That's correct.
and you didn't get a receipt?
That's correct, Your Honor, and I had asked for that.
You are
time
one
and time
lying
again.
sucker. You just told me no more than 5 minutes ago that you didn't pay her anything for those 4 months. And now you say you paid her, but you paid her in cash?
Yes, Your Honor, and I also have a statement from her in a response.
You just told me you didn't pay her for 4 months. And you told me the reason you didn't pay her for 4 months is because she volunteered for you to stay there for free.
That was
What is it? Did you pay her or did you not?
Your Honor, I paid her for the month, March and April rent.
That's not what I asked you, sir. I said, show me the receipts for May, June, July, and August.
I have no receipts for those, Your Honor.
Because you didn't pay her for those months.
That's correct.
Right. So you owe her for those months. Because if something is so unbearable that you can't live there because you don't like the fact that she is making these suggestive statements to you, you're a big boy whose feet aren't planted in cement, you pick yourself up and you leave.
Well, Your Honor, through conversation with her, I felt that this problem would be resolved. She is an attorney, and I felt that she would understand as far as a relationship goes as a roommate, and there was going to be no physical or relationship
So
ever
did
in
it
there.
stop?
The harassment?
Did it stop?
It did stop for some time, Your Honor.
For how much time, sir?
It would be hard to say. I mean, there was comments made left and right, but maybe for the first month after that, it seemed to be, she seemed to work on it.
Mr. Herzog, what do you do for a living, sir?
I am self-employed. I own a business.
What kind of business do you own, sir?
It's a manufacturing business.
What kind of manufacturing?
We manufacture snowboards.
Snowboards. Mr. Herzog, did you ever hear the expression, beauty fades, dumb is forever?
Yes, I have.
Your beauty is going to go one day, sir. I know you must think you're a very handsome man and you can get away with murder, but I'm telling you, I do not find you particularly attractive. Maybe it's because I'm too old. I don't think so. But anybody who can twist the truth, like you can, is not good looking in my eyes. Now, if this lady had a thing for you, I don't know, maybe she's desperate. Who knows? In any event, you can't stand there as a man and tell me that you were so offended by the way your landlord was treating you, you stayed on for 4 months but didn't pay her any rent. You want to say something?
If I may.
About what?
About the sexual harassments that
Who are you?
I am Heidi Britton.
How do you know him?
He is my brother.
Where do you live?
I live in Laguna Beach.
Why didn't he live with you?
Because I'm an opera singer and I travel around the world.
Wonderful. So you must have an apartment that's free a lot.
No.
That's vacant a lot.
No, I have a husband.
Well, if the situation with your brother, madam, was so unbearable in his residence, And you, as his sister, who clearly cares about him, did not say, while it's so unbearable there, living with this lady and her 2 children, come and live with me. You're not much of a sister. Now you tell me whatever you want to tell me.
First day I met Marilyn, she had made comments about what a good-looking body, what, you know, does he have a girlfriend? Is there anything that you can do to help me? You know, I'm interested in basically, and I'd like to have a relationship with him.
So?
I told him no, that he had been seeing someone and that was inappropriate. I thought, you know, he's my brother. I don't know you. I'm not going to divulge information or share information, which if he wanted you to know something, he would tell you something.
So what?
On other occasions, she had said to me, I really want Bruno to stay here. I'd like to be involved with him. I was out in the yard with his cats, with Bruno. She said, I'll pay him to stay here. I really like Bruno. I'd like, he'd be a...
So did you think that that was all very sick?
I thought that was very, very sick.
Very sick.
In fact, I had assisted and started looking for other locations for my brother.
If you thought it was all very sick, why would you allow your brother to stay in a sick situation?
Well,
is he retarded?
No, he's not.
Is your brother retarded?
No, he's not.
Is he dim-witted?
No, he's not.
He owes her money. That's what he does.
Judge Judy is ready to rule, and later today...
You wouldn't know the truth, Mr. Neville, if it came up and bit you in the behind.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Marilyn Thomason wants money owed for rent and utilities from her former roommate, Bruno Herzog. Mr. Herzog says Ms. Thomason harassed and assaulted him.
I'm taking his amount, madam, of $450, right? That's $1,800. And I'm not even tacking on much for utilities, another $50 for the 4 months, bringing your grand total to $2,000. Listen to me. I really have no idea whether she said what you attribute to her. Nothing sounds so lewd and lascivious to me. This is not sexual harassment in the workplace. You didn't work there. She wasn't trying to create a situation to make things unbearable for you so that you couldn't earn a living. You are clearly, at least according to your sister, of sound mind. And you had the ability and the capability to pick yourself up and move if you didn't like what was going on. You don't live there and sponge off somebody. Now, you've got a countersuit for sexual harassment. I assume that you've told me the best statements that you can think of that she said to you during the course of your tenancy that would at least touch my conscience and say that's terrible, right? And I don't find she sexually harassed you at all, sir. If she liked you and you didn't like her, the chivalrous thing to do would have been to have moved out as quickly as possible. Your counterclaim for sexual harassment is dismissed, and I am awarding the plaintiff $2,000 for your back rent and utilities. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She had just shot some photos of me without my consent when I was in the backyard, kind of half naked, I guess you'd say, with no shirt on, for her own, I guess, private use, pleasures.
You're
Disgusting.
An old, disgruntled woman who has 2 children by 2 different fathers. Get over it. He's not going to be a father to your children.
I have many friends, and I'm dating somebody.
Batteries.
No, we got along fine. He had a great sense of humor.
And now the next case.
Parties on Haney versus Neville Neiman. Step forward, please.
37-year-old florist Sue Haney says her neighbors Jeff Newman and Craig Neville stole her bicycle and destroyed it.
Bicycle that you owned.
Correct.
They were arrested. Correct. Bicycle that you owned.
Correct.
They were arrested. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
Found guilty.
No.
Not if
we were arrested and convicted of receiving of stolen property.
But the stolen property was her bicycle.
Yes.
And when your bicycle was returned to you, it was returned in what condition?
Pieces.
So you're suing both of these young men for the cost of your bike, which is $202.64.
Right.
You want to tell me why you don't think that you are responsible to pay her? Let's start with you, Mr. Newman.
First of all, I paid a $200 restitution fine. I spent 2 days in jail. I almost lost my job over this, and I'm not a criminal. This is the first thing I've ever been in trouble for in my life.
So that's the reason why you don't think that you're responsible to pay her at least part of the money.
This has taken up way too much of my time already.
Now,
Shouldn't have taken it.
please.
Order.
Please.
I didn't take it.
Please. And you are Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Neville, would you tell me why you don't think that you are responsible to pay her at least part of the money for her bicycle?
Well, first of all, I didn't steal her bike, neither did Jeff. I bought the thing from somebody off the street.
Baloney! So let's start with the first, with that's baloney.
No, it's not.
Yeah, sure it is. Sure it is. It's baloney. You just so happen to have bought a bike that was stolen from somebody off the street, and you knew one of her children or something, according to the complaint.
No,
Is that right?
I've known all of her children for years.
You knew all of her children, so it was just a coincidence that you had the bicycle and it was taken apart and dismantled so that some of you had the wheels, some of you had the main frame of the bike. That was all just a coincidence. Am I correct, sir? Just a coincidence?
Yes.
Well, I want you to get him a copy of my book.
I think we would have been smart enough if we'd stolen this woman's bike to have gotten rid of the parts after we'd stolen them.
Mr. Neville, thieves are always stupid. You didn't buy this bike from some unknown person, sir. And if you did, I am certain that you would have told the police the name of the person that you bought the bike from. Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
You told them the name of the person, and did they contact that person?
I don't know.
Did you tell them where they could find that person?
I didn't know where the person lived.
Well, why don't you tell me how it came about that you bought this bicycle from, let us call him John Jones? Why don't you look at me, sir, and tell me how it came about that you bought this bicycle?
I was hanging out with the guy at a party. He told me he had a bicycle.
You were hanging out with a guy at a party.
Mm-hmm.
Which guy?
His name was Steve.
And so Steve told you he had a bike.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Told you he had a bike.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Stupid trying to tell me that story?
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Don't you feel stupid trying to tell me that story?
No,
Don't you feel
it's the truth. I don't feel stupid telling the truth.
You wouldn't know the truth, Mr. Neville, if it came up and bit you in the behind. Each of you owes this lady $101 and 32 cents. You, sir, your excuse for not paying her is that this matter has taken up all too much of your time. Not an excuse. And your, sir, excuse that you bought this bicycle from, and I quote, Steve doesn't wash with me. You're entitled to your money, madam. You have a judgment for that amount.
Thank you
That's all.
very much.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right, please.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next
Xin chào tất cả các bạn. Hôm nay làm video này, cô sẽ hướng dẫn cho các bạn viết chữ R có trong bảng chữ cái tiếng Việt. Và bây giờ thì cô sẽ viết chữ R trong bảng chữ cái tiếng Việt. Và chữ R cô viết sẽ là chữ R in hoa và chữ R in thường. Chữ R in hoa cô viết sẽ cao 5 mô ly và rộng 5 mô ly. Và bây giờ thì cô sẽ viết chữ R in hoa trước nhé. Đây là chữ R in hoa cô vừa viết xong. Và bây giờ thì cô sẽ viết chữ NR thường. Chữ NR thường thì sẽ cao 2 ô ly và rộng 2 ô ly. Đó, đây là chữ R in hoa và chữ NR in thường mà cô vừa viết xong. Và đây là chữ R có trong bảng chữ cái tiếng Việt mà cô vừa hướng dẫn cho tất cả các bạn viết. Có chữ R in hoa và chữ R in thường.